She nodded, looking thoughtful for a moment. Their enthusiasm should not become an excuse for me to neglect my responsibilities. But it is nice to rest. She looked at the water flowing past their feet. We used to come here for lunch when I was new to the division. This place holds many good memories for me. Ichigo chuckled. What? Just trying to picture you as a nervous rookie. We all have to start somewhere. I know, he said. But even back when I was still a kid, you seemed like you'd always been on top of things. Or at least, that's what you wanted me to believe. I had to set an example, she said. Or you would have frozen in fear and let the hollows run rampant. He snorted. Not likely. I did just fine. With my help, yes. We got the job done, didn't we? She smiled. We did. Maybe she really had just been busy and distracted when he tried to talk to her at the meeting the other day. Rukia seemed a lot more relaxed as they ate and chatted. Once she finished with her lunch, she set it aside and leaned back on the grass, closing her eyes. I know we should return to the office, but I feel entirely too comfortable. So slack a little. I won't tell. She laughed. Thank you. The stress in her brow eased as she soaked up the sun. I want to kiss her. Ichigo nearly jumped at his own thought. Where had that come from? And why? She wasn't doing anything special, just laying there, her hair spread out, framing her face. She looked beautiful. He amended the thought. I really want to kiss her. It would be easy. She wasn't even looking at him. He could lean over and do it. She'd probably bite his face off, but still. There was nothing stopping him. He looked away. I saw my father the other day. Rukia opened her eyes and sat up. Here in Siriidii? Yeah. He just wanted to see how I was. It's been a long time. Took him a while to get the news. I imagine so. He does not come here very often. What? He looked over sharply. You've seen him? Rukia nodded. From time to time. I understand he spends most of his time tending to the sick in Rukongai, but once in a while he comes to visit Captain Yukitake. Oh. He felt a sinking sensation as he wondered exactly what Rukia and his father had talked about. That makes sense. Did you have a pleasant visit? I guess so. He rubbed the back of his neck. He wasn't around for too long. He just wanted to catch up on grandkids things. He must be happy to be able to see you again. Yeah. He picked up his bento box. We should probably get back. All right. For a moment she looked curious, like she wanted to ask more about Ishin's visit, but in the end she apparently decided not to. Ichigo was grateful. The walk back was as quiet as the walk down had been, though for a different reason. Ichigo was too lost in thought to start another conversation. It was stupid to be having these thoughts. Probably his dad's fault for bringing it up in his mind. Just because he wasn't an old man anymore didn't mean he needed to start sniffing around something that had brought them only pain. It wasn't as if Rukia was even interested anymore. She'd made that perfectly clear long ago. He nodded at her when she stopped at her desk and he continued to Yukitake's office. Better to focus on what he was here for. It made no sense to get caught up in the past. It was too late for any of that. 39 years ago. Ichigo. You're late. Excuse me. He leaned his head around one of the large bags of groceries he carried. I was at the store. How am I late? Yuko grinned at him. We have to be efficient about this, Kurosaki. I refuse to live in a place like that cave you called a bachelor pad, and that means we have to have everything clean and put away by bedtime. It's the weekend. Why do we need to unpack so fast when we have all of tomorrow to finish, too? Well, we could take it easy. She tilted her head, looking thoughtful. But the time we spend putting crap away is the time you spend not getting laid. Ichigo dropped the bags on the counter. I can have the kitchen finished in an hour. I'm still working on the bathroom. She laughed as she sprinted down the hall, long black hair flying behind her. Don't lie, you know the scent of cleaning spray gets you hot. He turned his attention to the food and the boxes of pots, pans and assorted items that made up their newly combined kitchen supplies. Moving in with his girlfriend had seemed like a good idea when it had come up, but he hadn't realized what a pain in the actual moving part would be. Only one way to get through it. He began pulling food out of the bags and finding places for it in the fridge or the cabinets. He'd been a little appalled at the amount of stuff Yuko considered necessary for an adequately stocked kitchen, but not nearly as appalled as she'd been at his idea of cooking. Being a busy doctor gave him some leeway, she'd informed him, but not enough to have that much instant ramen and macaroni. Ichigo. He heard her pad back into the kitchen behind him. We've got another one. Another what? Oh. He turned to see a ghost floating over Yuko's left shoulder. This one was an old man with a bashful expression. All right. I'll take care of it. You, over here. He motioned to the ghost. I don't know how you've done this your whole life. It must drive you crazy. Hey, you see them too. See them, yes. Get constantly stalked by them, no. If I had ghosts regularly peeking at me in my bathroom, you better believe I would have invented a new exorcism technique years ago. She pecked him on the cheek and headed back to the bathroom. Okay, listen. He spoke quietly to the spirit. Go north a couple blocks from this apartment building, then float to the top of that really big office. The local Shinigami likes to hang out there on patrol. He'll perform a soul burial on you and send you to Soul Society where you can be happy and never hungry again and all that shit. The old man trembled. I don't want to be buried. Just go, would you? It's not like being buried underground. The man squeaked at Ichigo's fierce expression and floated through the wall. Ichigo sighed. He would never get the hang of sounding enthusiastic about Soul Society. He could have performed Kanso himself, but the existence of Shinigami and his past experience as one of them was something he'd never told Yuko, and the possibility of her entering the room to find him outside his body holding an enormous sword probably wasn't the best way to do it. He had little enough to do with being a Shinigami these days. It was better to let the local one handle things. There came an authoritative knock at the door. Ha! He wasn't expecting anyone, but maybe the neighbors had noticed them moving in and were friendlier than he'd expected. He trotted over, opened the door and stopped dead. The person on the other side of the entryway was the one person he'd wanted to see for the longest time and the last one he expected now. Rukia. He nearly slammed the door in her face before thinking better of it. He jumping outside and closed it firmly and quietly. What the F are you doing here? He hissed. She looked up at him with calm, emotionless eyes. I've been sent with news from Soul Society, she said. You have got to be FNG kidding me, he said. Since when do you knock on the door, anyway? She wasn't even in a jigai, just her usual shihakusho, sword sheathed at her side. I did not want to intrude, she said. Would you have preferred I stepped through the wall? No. No. The last thing he needed was to have to explain that not only did Shinigami exist, but this particular one was his ex-girlfriend, to his current girlfriend. Just give me a second. He dashed back inside. Yuko. What? She yelled back from the bathroom. I swear I've got this corner crud on the run, don't interrupt me now. I forgot something from the store. I'm gonna go get it now. Okay, whatever. He half hoped Rukia would be gone when he returned to the hall, but she remained, implacid as ever. Come on. He stalked past her and didn't look to see if she followed him down the hall to the stairwell with roof access. It was cold outside for this time of year, especially with the way the wind whipped across the apartment building's roof. He ignored it. Okay, he said, crossing his arms over his chest. What do you want? I told you. There is news from Soul Society. Nothing in her expression, not even a DMN twitch betrayed any discomfort she might have had at being there. Unusually strong pockets of wild energy have been detected leaking from Hueco Mundo, resulting in especially strong hollows in the area. Not quite to Arrancar levels, but still very dangerous. I fought one myself on the way here. Sounds like the local Shinigami is the one needs to be told, not me, he said flatly. I don't have any official duties here and I haven't fought in a while anyway. He has been, she said. But as an official Shinigami representative, retired or not, it was decided you must know. Don't underestimate the seriousness of this, Ichigo. For the most part we have been able to control the rips in reality since the war, but only through constant vigilance. This state of affairs may not always continue. Even if you don't fight regularly, you must be on alert. Right, he said. And I suppose you just had to be the one to tell me. That got a reaction. Twin points of faint pink appeared on her cheeks, they would probably have been unnoticeable if she weren't so pale. Someone had to, and I am familiar with the area. And that. You've never been here before, Rukia, he snapped. I just moved in yesterday. You're keeping tabs on me now. Should I look out for hidden cameras? Soul Society is, yes, she said with an acid tinge to her voice. You expected otherwise? You have power, and that. No, he burst out. You don't get to do that. You don't get to lecture me like this is all business. What do you want me to say, Ichigo? He stomped forward, bending down until his face was in hers and her eyes were wide. You. Left. Me. Rukia got redder. She said nothing. You came here and screwed me and left me without even talking to me, he said. I deserved a chance to say something. But you couldn't stand that, could you? Everything on your terms, like always. It wouldn't have worked, she said quietly. I was holding you back. It had to end, Ichigo, and you weren't going to be the one to do it. So I did. I wish I hadn't hurt you, but you wouldn't have listened to me if I'd stayed longer. Maybe. Maybe not, he said. Maybe I would have understood. Maybe we could have made a clean break, at least. Not like we'll ever know now. Do you really believe that? She demanded. You're the most stubborn, obnoxious person I have ever met. Like you're one to talk. And you would not have given up. You never do. I don't give up on things that are worth fighting for. No, you don't listen to things you need to hear. Not if they're completely stupid. His throat already feeling raw from shouting, Ichigo suddenly realized how close they were. He could reach out and... He stepped back. I moved on, he said. But not right away. For like a year, I was a complete a-hole to everyone I knew. And then, he took a breath. I have a girlfriend. She's downstairs. I know, Rukia said quietly. What? I know. She closed her eyes for a moment, then met his gaze. It was not my intention to interrupt your life, but we receive reports on your activities, your location, and I needed to know if you were happy. Yes. Yeah. He tried to calm down, slow his breathing. Yuko's, she didn't mind I was a JRK when we first knew each other. She doesn't let me get away with any shit. She's not you. She's not perfect, but she's good. We're good. Good. Her voice was hoarse. I am glad. She turned and took a few steps, and it was only then that he noticed how stiffly she moved. Rukia, are you hurt? He reached for her arm but she pulled away. It was the hollow I fought before. A minor injury, she said. I am glad you're content. This is what I wanted for you, Ichigo. Do you understand now? He wasn't sure if her voice cracked on the last word or if it was his imagination. You lived as if we were just waiting it out, but I was never going to come to the living world to stay, and you should never have to give up your life. Not for me. Not when you have so much to offer. And you? He asked. Are you happy? She smiled for an instant. I have my friends, and my brother, she said. And my duties. I'm satisfied with where I am. That's not. I am happy, Ichigo. I could not wish for my life to be different, and if you are well, I am happy. You don't need to worry about me. I won't, he said gruffly, not caring if she believed him or not. He felt sick in his gut. He could still feel the fading embers of his anger, cooling now from what had been a white-hot blaze. She nodded. Go home, Ichigo, she said. She drew her sword. Go be with your girlfriend. Stay happy. Rukia. She closed her eyes, held out her sword and spoke the word that would take her away. The gate to Soul Society appeared before her. Once again, he watched her leave him. Just like the last time, she never looked back. Yuko was putting away the cleaning supplies when he returned. Ichigo, she greeted him cheerily. I finished the bathroom. I'm sure you'll stink it up again, big man, but at least we'll know whose fault it is. What's wrong? He pulled her into a tight hug. Ichigo. Nothing, he said. I just needed to hold on to you. She moved her arms up, fingers resting lightly on his back. Are you okay? What did you need at the store? He rested his chin on her head. I forgot. Though it had taken her years and training to believe in herself, Rukia knew she was a fairly powerful Shinigami in command of a considerable amount of Ryatsu, not someone an enemy should take lightly. Yet at the moment, it was taking nearly all that spirit energy to keep herself from falling asleep from sheer boredom. In theory, she should be enjoying herself, she thought as she finished filling out yet another evaluation form in triplicate. Young Shinigami rising to their potential, pushing themselves to new heights and possibly being rewarded with a higher seat in the division. It could be an inspiring thing. She held no bitterness over the way she'd been artificially held back in past assessments of her own. It just made the experience of watching hard workers get what they deserved even sweeter. If only there weren't so much petty sniping and whining involved. Vice Captain Kuchiki. She looked up to see a currently unseated Shinigami standing before her. By the looks of the bandages on his face and torso, he was likely to remain unseated. I'm Takada Shiro. I don't want to bother you, but I think I should get to do my evaluation again. My opponent cheated. Did not. An angry-looking girl ran into the room. Shiro, you said you were going to the fourth. Don't listen to him, Vice Captain, I kicked his butt. That was probably true, Rukia thought. I'm afraid the evaluation schedule doesn't allow time for repeats, Shiro, she said. She stood and put a comforting hand on his shoulder, gently escorting him towards the door. Don't worry. It's clear you fought hard, both of you. Captain Yukitake is the fairest captain in the Godiai 13, you'll both receive the positions you deserve. You handled that well, Yukitake remarked from the doorway to his private office. I thought I might need to come sort that out, but I see my presence was unnecessary. Never, sir. She smiled. All they want is to know they're getting a fair chance, and that they're worthy of consideration. It's easy once you understand that. I suppose so, he chuckled. The fairest captain, am I? That's a lovely thing to say. She felt her face warm. I only spoke my true opinion, sir. Well, thank you, he said. We're none of us so old we don't like compliments once in a while. Let me know if you need any assistance with those forms, would you? I have it under control, sir, but I will. Left to the silence and the almost meditative quality of paperwork, Rukia felt her mood settle. She was still tense, but less so, and she felt better than she had before Ichigo had spent his day with her division yesterday. Luckily, it had turned out to be more pleasant than she'd anticipated. It wasn't that she didn't want to see him, but she still hadn't been sure how to act around him when just looking at him tied her stomach up in knots. Eating lunch together had eased things. Reminiscing about the old days, back when they were partners, back when they could count on each other. Lovers, then estranged acquaintances. Only now was she starting to believe that she could remember how to be his friend. Oi, Rukia. She looked up and blinked, unsure if he was really there or if her mind was playing tricks on her. Ichigo. What are you doing here? Not much else to do. Thought I'd come see what was going on over here, he said. You looked pretty lost in thought just now. Paperwork. She held it up as proof. It gets the best of all of us. Yeah, true enough, he said. Hinamori and Hisagi are doing their best to drown me in it. Preparation, they say. Then shouldn't you be with them at your division? We already worked through lunch so we could leave at a decent hour today. He raised an eyebrow in a familiar cocky expression. Trying to get rid of me? If it means I can finish my work more efficiently, then yes. Finish it tomorrow, he said, jerking his head towards the window. It's quitting time. The sun was rather lower in the sky than she had realized. The work needs to be done regardless of what time it is. You'll learn that quickly when you're a captain. You can't just laze about. I don't want to laze about, he said. Actually, I was wondering if you'd like to train or something. Train? With swords and sheet. You do still use yours, right? She narrowed her eyes. You lack training partners. I should think the 11th would be happy to help. They would, except they're busy with assessment too, only their version is them trying to kill each other. They're keeping the 4th busy, though, so I guess that helps with their evaluations. He shrugged. It's fun to help out with the advanced academy classes, but I was in the mood for someone with a little more experience. And your own division? These girls keep showing up at our training grounds, giggling and sheet. It's kind of freaking me out. He looked uncomfortable. Never mind, if it's that much of a hassle for you I don't want to bug you. No, that's all right. She breathed in. Training was nothing special, they had sparred in the past, though not frequently, for it had always made more sense for them to work with each other than against each other. Friends, she reminded herself. It was normal for friends to spend time together. I would be happy to assist you. Great. He smiled. Something about his grin must have been contagious, because she smiled back. She could do this. You lead the way. Oh. Our training grounds are all occupied right now, unfortunately, she said. Our division is very zealous. Many unseated Shinigami are still training for tomorrow's evaluations. DMN. She smirked. You're that nervous about spectators? When did you get so shy? I'm not. He glared. It's just, the giggles. I can't ever figure out what's so funny. Shut up, you'd be creeped out too if it was you. She opened her mouth to make a smart remark, then closed it again. Despite all the years, Ichigo was still ignorant on the subject on women in some ways. But something inside her warned her off of touching the subject, even as a friend. Then where do you want to go? Everyone is in the middle of assessments. It would be rude to intrude on another division's facilities. He thought for a moment before his face lit up. I know a place, he said. Get up. We're taking a walk. Growing into old age and back again had done nothing to reduce the speed of Ichigo's flash steps. Rukia let him lead the way until he stopped near an all-too-familiar landmark, Sokayaku Hill. Or rather, what had once been the execution ground. Today it was nothing more than a barren scrap of land beside a dead forest. Ichigo, she said, eyes widening, no one will be here, true, but I don't think this is inappropriate. Not here, he said. He pointed down one side of the cliff. Here. When she saw the size of the secret cave Ichigo had taken her to, her jaw dropped. It wasn't just huge even if its size was due to an optical illusion, it had to take up a large portion of the cliff. It was also well lit through some agency she couldn't detect. The barren landscape, pocked by rocky outcrops, looked all too familiar. This looks like Sandal Hat's basement, Ichigo said, looking pleased. Glad it's still here. Urahara built this? And you've been here before? He nodded. Yoruchi-san said he built it to be their playground when they were kids. This is where we trained the first time I came to Soul Society. Something clicked in her mind. This is where you achieved Bankai. Yeah. He strode towards the center of the room. Renji too, technically. Although he did it a lot differently. I didn't even see that happen, I was too busy trying not to get killed by my own Zanpakuto. He grinned at her, full of confident pride, and she wondered if he realized even now what a truly staggering accomplishment it had been, or if he still saw it as just another exceptional act he'd managed out of necessity. Part of her still felt humbled that he'd done it for her sake. I'm glad you didn't, she said, and left unspoken all the things she wanted to say. It was worth it, wasn't it? She looked away, unsure if she could control her expression. I suppose it was. She felt too full of emotion for what should be a routine training session. Action was the best distraction. Without warning, she dropped to a crouch and lashed out with one leg, sweeping his legs out from under him. He landed on his butt with a whump. What the F? You wanted to train. She drew Shirayuki, leaned over him, and touched the point lightly to his throat. So let's train. In one quick flash step, she was away. It only took him a second to recover and jump to his feet, freeing Zangetsu from his wrap. The race was on. It was like a game of tag. Both of them carried their swords at the ready, but neither sought to strike, only to catch up to one another. Surprise had given her the initial advantage, though she wouldn't have a hope of outpacing him if he released his Bankai. Even unreleased, every time she dropped out of flash step she saw him closing the distance between them, a manic grin on his face. She diverted her course to land behind a heap of boulders. She paused, focusing her senses on Ichigo's Ryatsu, though he was out of sight. He landed in front of her, facing away. She moved a leg out to kick him in the butt but he whirled around, catching her ankle in one hand. Gotcha. He shoved. She fell. He hung around just long enough to catch her indignant expression before stepping out again. Ichigo was enjoying this too much. She followed him, but he was going all out to evade her. Even worse, he'd begun circling her. BSTRD, she muttered. He wasn't quite as smart as he thought, though his movements were fast but predictable. Dance, Shirayuki, she whispered, taking aim. Second dance Hakuren. The white wave shot past Ichigo. From this distance, she could hear a yelp of surprise. In 2 heartbeats, she stood beside him as he yanked at the corner of sleeve that had been trapped in the glacier. Gotcha, she chortled, just out of sword reach. Ichigo grinned. With a mighty tug, he tore free and lunged, shoulder bared and blade at the ready. It was strange to spar against an opponent wielding a weapon taller than she was, but there was something gratifying in the challenge, Rukia decided. If they were truly trying to take each other down, both would certainly use different strategies, but even just tagging each other prevented them from holding back too much. Ichigo had to be incredibly strong just to swing Zangetsu as fluidly as he did. Rukia knew this for a fact, his bared, muscled shoulder was evidence of it, and she'd had those arms around her often enough to know well their strength. But in this case, speed was very much on her side. Height was on Ichigo's. He'd clearly decided to press the advantage by striking out from above her, forcing her to deflect from below. She slid sideways, changing her angle of attack, but he recovered admirably. He struck again, she slid out again. She frowned. Ichigo was picking up speed, forcing her to stay on the defensive. Determined to regain the edge, she jumped back, attempting to throw him off balance and hit a rock wall. Ha! He slammed Zangetsu into the wall beside her right shoulder blade first, then shot out an arm on her other side. Not so fast, Rukia. She nearly growled. All right, you've got me. What now? I dunno. What do I win? He leaned in. Suddenly the world seemed to go still even as her insides turned upside down. He was too close, invading her personal space. She wanted to shove him away and continue sparring, but her arms and legs wouldn't listen to her. His smirk slipped away to some expression she couldn't read, and for a heartbeat, they stared at each other. Rukia stomped on his foot hard. Ow, he yelled with bewildered affront. Damn it, what was that for? You let your guard down again, she said. She pointed Shirayuki at him. Ready to continue? He pulled Zangetsu from the rock. Only if you are. The strange moment passed, and she breathed easier when Ichigo didn't question her temporary paralysis. She put him on the defensive until he returned the favor back and forth, exchanging the lead until they were both sweating. Neither drew blood until Rukia, growing tired, zigged when she should have zagged and received a shallow slice on the arm for her efforts. Ichigo lowered his sword immediately. Sheet, sorry. Don't be. She pressed her hand to the cut. It barely hurt, but it was already starting to bleed annoyingly. You can't tell me no one bleeds when you train with the 11th. No, but that's different. If you think I'm worthy of any less rigorous training, Ichigo, I will have to hurt you. Of course not, he said. This does seem like a good time for a break, though. Here, let me help you with that. You. Carry extra bandages. No, come on, over this way. The hot spring was hidden behind a large outcrop of rock. Rukia never would have noticed it if Ichigo hadn't known exactly where to go. He crouched by the water on a flat rock, motioning for her to join him. This will help. He slid her sleeve above the cut with one hand and scooped up some water with the other, then pressed that hand against the wound. I'm not sure how that will, she broke off. She felt a tingling where the water touched the broken skin. Ichigo rubbed her skin gently in a way that set off an entirely different tingle. Half of her wanted to pull away from his hand and the entirely unfriendly feelings it was stirring in her, but the rest forced her to stay completely still so he wouldn't stop. A few moments later, he removed his hand. There. All better. The cut was completely gone, though she hadn't even noticed it healing. That's amazing, she said, forcing her mind away from an unwanted line of thought. How does it work? No idea. He shrugged. It helped when I was training. The old man here really beat the shit out of me. He smiled fondly at his sword. Rukia sat back and looked around them. Strange that I never asked you about the specifics of your training, she said. I suppose we had too much on our minds after Aizen escaped. He shrugged. Not a big deal anyway. I just did what I had to do. Those were harder times, she said. A captain's job isn't simple, but it's much better now than during wartime. I think I can handle it, he said. I mean, I can't do a worse job than Aizen, right? She snorted. And I've got some pretty good role models on how not to F up. That should help. Even if they are kinda crazy. I'm sure Hinamori would be delighted to hear that. I'm not talking about Hinamori. She looked sharply at him, but his expression was open and guileless. Something in the pit of her stomach sunk. His intent was to be complimentary, she knew, but she didn't want to think about herself as a role model for Ichigo. Not when she knew she wanted to be more. I should go, she said quietly. Now. He looked surprised. I was just getting my second wind. There's always the 11th. She stood. I'm sorry, but there really is a great deal more work for me to do. But thank you for the exercise. It was pleasant. She left quickly instead of waiting for Ichigo to accompany her. If she waited, he might notice how fiercely she was concentrating on not trembling. DMN her foolish emotions. She'd thought she'd remembered how to be his friend. No, she had. It was just that having him so near her, having his hand on her, reminded her of other things as well. Things she couldn't get out of her mind now. Division headquarters were still buzzing with activity when she returned. Some were still practicing for evaluations, but a squad of armed Shinigami surrounded Captain Yukitake in the main office. "Rukia," he greeted her. "Have you seen Kion? There have been reports of a huge holo. I wanted her to take Squad 9 out to get more field experience." "I will take them," she volunteered. Yukitake looked surprised. "Are you sure? You've been working all day. You're more than entitled to a break." "No, sir. I'm fine." "All right then." He nodded to the squad. Vice Captain Kuchiki is in charge. A mission was usually the perfect thing to clear her mind. Under normal circumstances, it would have been. But under normal circumstances, she would have known better than lead a rookie squad while distracted. Under normal circumstances, they would only be hunting an average holo, not one that was as devilishly fast as it was large, separating Shinosuke from the squad and lashing out with pronged tentacles. She wouldn't have been caught off guard and would have been able to choose a better plan than throwing herself in front of the wide-eyed boy. She would have been able to do something besides feel a painful crunch as the holo grabbed her by the leg and squeezed, then hear a whistling of air rushing past her head before everything went black. 33 years ago. Division 13 had always been considered one of the most dignified divisions, based largely on the reputation of its captain and the calm manner in which he ran it. Some deemed the division boring. All would have been surprised at the intense revelry that followed Kuchiki Rukia's official promotion to vice captain. "I chose a vice captain only when I found someone I could trust implicitly to do the job well," Yukitake had told her just after the ceremony, beaming at her. "Kion would be proud of you." She had smiled back, the pain of old wounds only twisting her heart a little. Rukia still felt a little dazed, more from the honor than the drink. She had been careful not to overindulge. This was a night she wanted to remember, though she did permit herself a few more sips of sake than her brother would have considered proper. She was content to step back and watch her comrades party themselves out for her sake. Currently, she was watching them from the roof of one of the division's smaller storage buildings, just outside the courtyard's boundaries. She was winding down for the night, though she wasn't yet ready to sleep. The vice captain's badge on her left arm, firmly tied there by Captain Yukitake, was a weight she wanted to savor. She wasn't sure she would want to take it off when she did make it to bed. When she had shown it to her brother, who was one of the only non-13th Division members invited to the party, he had smiled just for a moment before returning to his normal stoic expression, but she had seen pride there. There was one person who hadn't seen it that she wished she could show, but she pushed those thoughts out of her mind. Whatever regrets she may have had, she wasn't going to let them rule her now. Soft steps on the roof alerted her to the presence of another, but the Ryatsu that came with it was as familiar as her own. "Nice party," Renji said, settling down beside her. She nodded. "They do more than they should." He nudged her with his elbow. "Hey. Don't start talking about how you don't deserve it. This is your day." "I wasn't going to." She cast an amused glance his way. "I simply referred to their ill-advised decision to drink so much of Captain Yukitake's private liquor stock. It is very old, and quite potent." "Ouch." Renji winced. "That's gonna hurt in the morning. Brave Shinigami of the 13th Division know well the battles they face." He shot her a look. "You're not drunk, are you?" She shook her head. "I am. Almost entirely sober." "Almost? This is my party, Renji." Yeah. Good." If she'd been paying more attention, she might have wondered about the way he drew his shoulders together, like he was working himself up to something. "I was thinking we should celebrate sometime soon, if you want." "That would be nice. My treat." "So they do have manners in the 9th Division. There's a nice restaurant in North 1st District a lot of the other captains like to go to. They serve those little shell thingies. Really good." She nodded. "I have been there with my brother." Renji reached out to take her hand in his. He stroked the back of it with his thumb. I was thinking it could just be you and me, he said quietly. It was only her iron control as a Kuchiki that allowed her to look at him with eyes just a little wider than normal. Renji. You know I'm really proud of you, he said. You earned this. You should be happy. And I'd really like the chance to make you happy. There was not one single thing Rukia could think of to say that would be an adequate response. Renji looked at her intently, and began leaning closer. When she neither pulled back nor moved forward, he closed the rest of the distance, and kissed her softly. It was another few moments before she gathered her wits about her, but by then Renji was already pulling away. He tensed, and she knew that she had the power to shatter him if she said the wrong thing now. Renji, I'm not sure what to say. I ain't gonna push, he said. Take some time to think, if you need to. We've been friends a long time, you and me. Whatever you say, that ain't gonna change. She nodded automatically. I do. Need time. Figured you would. He squeezed her hand once and stood. I need to go find Ikaku for the drink I owe him, he said. You know how to find me when you're ready. He couldn't have read her more clearly. She watched him go, then stood herself, suddenly unable to be still. If she were honest with herself, she would admit that his words, while not expected, were not a complete surprise. This was Renji. No one knew her better or understood her quite so well as he did. And the way he'd looked at her. She shivered. It had been a long time since someone had looked at her like that. And it wasn't likely that the last person who had would ever look at her that way again. So why should she hesitate to accept Renji's offer? He was saying exactly what she needed to hear, and she knew that he wasn't feeding her lines, either. He meant it. And she had always loved him. She did love him. But something kept her from chasing after him and telling him yes right now. I need to let go of Ichigo. It was foolish. It was unnecessary. Seeing him one more time wouldn't change anything between them. But if she wanted to give Renji an honest answer, she had to take care of unfinished business. Rukia made her way to the gate to the living world. For the second time in recent days, Ichigo found himself faced with the realization that he would never understand women. Hell, he'd give up on understanding women in general if he could figure out Rukia in particular. The training session had been going so well. It had seemed less like training and more like just having fun with an old friend. He was finally figuring out how to act around her. It had been nice, a little too nice, even, but he didn't think she'd noticed the effect she had on him. Maybe she had. Maybe that was why she'd shot out of there like a Minos Grande was on her tail. The early evening was quiet as he made his way back to Siriidii proper, but he didn't feel like turning in for the night yet. It wasn't that late, and he didn't feel like hanging solo. Maybe he could go find Kigo, or Hanataro, even. Aside from a few cheerful chats, he hadn't seen the guy much since he'd died. Ichigo guessed he was a lot busier now, as the 4th seat, than he had been back in the day. When he got to 4th Division grounds, he found that his luck was holding consistently tonight. Hanataro was tied up with a tricky healing session involving 2 11th Division members. Ichigo thanked the bespectacled Shinigami who provided the information and started to leave. Kurosaki-san. The gentle voice was vaguely familiar. He turned to see Captain Unohana standing there with a smile. It's nice to see you, she said. Were you looking for something? Just stopped by to see if Hanataro was around. He shrugged. Not for anything important. I don't want to interrupt his work. I've been looking forward to your visit with our division, she said. It's a bit early, but since Yamada-san is occupied, would you like to join me for tea? Again with the evening tea. Ichigo made a mental note to find out if there was some Shinigami rule of etiquette about tea he didn't know about. Sure. Why not? He barely knew Unohana aside from hazy memories of being healed by her during and just after the war, but as they sipped their tea and chatted, he found that he genuinely liked her. She was kind without being patronizing, but also had a certain sparkle to her eye that told Ichigo she wasn't someone he'd want to mess with. I understand we have something in common, she said, pouring him a second cup of tea. Eh? He gave her a blank look. I was told you were a doctor in the living world. Oh, yeah. He relaxed. Not like you. I did general clinic work with my dad sometimes, but I was a pediatrician at the local hospital. She smiled. You like children? He nodded. What you see is usually what you get with them, and when they do try and pull crap on you, it's because they're kids and that's their job. Easier than dealing with other adults sometimes. Do you have any children of your own? No, he said quietly. Would have been nice, but it didn't work out that way. It was always fun to spoil my nieces and nephews. Your father expressed similar sentiments. She smiled fondly. You know him too, huh? He seems to get around. We have met a few times since he returned to Soul Society, she said. But we were also good friends many years ago. Even then, he showed an interest in the healing arts. He's a good doctor, Ichigo said. Crazy as hell, but I guess that put people at ease or something. He has always been good at that, she said. He was also very good at healing Kiddo. Very unusual for a Shinigami so skilled in combat. That's Pops for you. He grinned. He likes to keep people guessing. She nodded. Have you explored that branch of Kiddo yet yourself? He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. To be honest, I'm still getting the hang of not blowing up things I don't want to, he said. It was an embarrassing admission, but even if he tried fudging the truth, he had a feeling she would be able to tell. It's probably not a good idea to put someone's welfare in my hands yet. It may be a better one than you realize, she said. Healing Kiddo takes a different path than the destructive arts. The proper mental channel is required. As a healer of a different sort in the living world, I suspect you already have the right mentality. Really? Of course. She sipped her tea. I would be happy to discuss this with you further another time. I'd like that, he said. I know why they scouted me for this job, but it'd be nice to be more than a fighter. Well, Without warning, an extremely tense-looking 4th Division Shinigami burst into the room. Captain Unohana, come quick, he said, words clipped. It's the 13th Vice Captain. She's hurt. Ichigo leapt to his feet along with Unohana. Rukia? What happened? Come with me, Kurosaki-san. Unohana nodded once at him before hurrying out towards the emergency arrivals section of the division, looking all business. He followed. He heard the commotion before he saw it, that bustle of activity that wasn't panicked, but meant something serious was happening. 3 Shinigami he didn't recognize appeared, hustling a stretcher towards them. They didn't slow down, just whisked it into a treatment room, but the glimpse he got was enough. Rukia lay on it, her face pinched with pain. There was blood there too, but what was on her head was nothing compared to her leg. Her hakama had been rolled up high enough for him to see the twisted shape of her right leg and the red-mottled white of protruding bone. Most of him wanted to rush into the room and ask what the hell had gone wrong, was she going to be okay, why the F, hadn't anyone protected her? But the detached doctor side of him, the one that still remained even though he wasn't one anymore, stopped him. The open break meant serious trauma, possibly compounded by other fractures if the deformation of her leg was any indication. The blood on her face could be from a scratch or a concussion. Fixing Rukia wouldn't be a patch job, and for all his living world training, he couldn't do the slightest bit of healing Kiddo yet. This was Unohana's scene. Better to leave her to it. He looked around for someone who'd have a clue. The short kid hovering behind him looked nervous and vaguely guilty, a good place to start. Hey, you! The kid snapped to face him, now looking almost terrified. What happened here? Are you in her squad? What's your name? He nodded. Shinosuke, sir. We were on a routine mission. Most of us are new to the division, and Vice Captain Kuchiki volunteered to take us out. We were hunting a single hollow, but when we found it, it was so big. He cast his eyes downward. I froze. It went for me, and Vice Captain Kuchiki jumped in to save me. It grabbed her and squeezed. And then it threw her. Threw her. Ichigo glared. Didn't anyone try and stop it? Yes. He gulped. But it was too fast, sir. Right, he snapped. Did someone get rid of it, or is that too much to hope for? He knew as well as anyone that with few exceptions, hollows were mindless. It would be stupid to take an attack on Rukia personally. Didn't stop him from wanting to kill it himself. Shinosuke nodded. Some of the others. He looked miserable. It's all my fault, sir. The vice captain was just protecting me. Ichigo opened his mouth to fire back a sharp reply, then focused on the kid's face. Definitely a rookie, he looked so young. Had Ichigo looked so young when he'd become a Shinigami? It didn't seem possible. It's not your fault, Shinosuke. Ichigo shook his head. Shit happens. Rukia was doing her job. He didn't look convinced. I should give my report to Captain Yukitake, he said. Will you tell her I'm sorry? When she's healed? Yeah. Sure. Kurosaki-san. Ichigo spun to face Unohana, who stood just inside the doorway. You can come in now if you like. He hesitated. Are you sure? I don't want to get in the way. Rukia needs to come first. She nodded, smiling gently. I have some work to do on her leg. I think it would help if you distracted her. How bad's it hurting her? Bad enough, but I've given her something for the pain, she said. It has relaxed her. He didn't get how Rukia could be all that relaxed when her friggin' bone was sticking out her leg, but he didn't bother to ask further questions. He crossed the room in quick strides and knelt beside Rukia's pallet. Rukia. I'm here. He quickly got his answer on the relaxation thing. Ichigo. Rukia grinned. You're here. That's so great. He gaped, taking in her wide smile, the glassy eyes. What did you give her? He turned to Unohana as she took her place beside Rukia's leg. A mild opiate to take her mind off her wound. She began probing Rukia's wound in ways he didn't want to look at. It should not bother her now. He snorted. It certainly wasn't, judging by the dopey expression on her face. He turned back to Rukia when she tugged on his sleeve sharply. Ichigo. You should pay attention to me. I'm injured. She looked like she was trying to glare but lacked the focus. He'd seen a lot of different reactions to painkillers. Some got sleepy, some got spacey, some got, well, stoned was the only word for it. Rukia seemed to fall into the third category. Yeah, he said, for lack of anything else. Sorry, Rukia. I'm paying attention to you now. It's about time. She poked him in the ribs, harder than he would have thought a drugged-up triage patient capable of. I had to wait a long time. He rolled his eyes. You had to wait about 5 minutes. No, I didn't, she scolded, the words coming out a little slurred. I had to wait years, Ichigo. Decades. Lots of them, even though I had better things to do. It's not even fun being old, but you had to wait years to die just to show that you could. You're a show-off. She sniffed. And I missed. He felt something catch in his chest. I missed you too, Rukia, he said quietly. She ignored him. I missed the... She made a bizarre wavy motion with her hands. Your coat. He gaped some more. Apparently, medicated Rukia was just going to have that effect on him. My coat. Your coat. She nodded, apparently happy he'd grasped the point. The black one. With the red stuff. Red stew, are you talking about my Bankai? Yes. Okay, he said. You missed my coat. I just told you that, she said witheringly. You don't listen. I'm listening, I'm listening. He patted her hand. Tell me about my coat, Rukia. She grinned again, and he felt his skin crawl. It was like her fake schoolgirl sparkly grin, only worse, because she wasn't faking it for an audience this time. "'Snice," she said. "Snug. Shows your hips. Not your butt, though." She sighed. "You have a good butt. Thought so way back when we met." A sudden cold sweat breaking out on his forehead, he shot a glance at Unohana. She was doing her work and carefully not paying attention to her patient's conversation. "Ah. That's good to know, Rukia. I didn't know that." She was only paying him scant attention. "A really good butt," she said, looking almost contemplative. "I liked squeezing it in bed." "Rukia." He gaped at her, equal parts appalled and embarrassed. "I know you remember that, Ichigo." She glared again, the effectiveness diminished somewhat by the fact that she seemed to be focusing on his ear. "We spent enough time there." This was not a conversation he wanted to have in front of anyone else, much less one of his fellow captains. "I really don't think this is the right place to talk about that." "Never is," she grumbled. "We never really talk anymore." "But you do remember, right? Rukia. Right? Okay, I remember." "No, you don't," she sulked, throwing her head against her cushion to stare at the ceiling. "You don't remember. I'm not memorable." "You're very memorable, Rukia," he gritted out. "But you shouldn't be thinking about this now. You're injured." He looked down at Unohana again and DMN. Whatever kiddu she was doing now, the way Rukia's flesh was moving made his skin crawl. Unohana caught his look and gave him a nod that he understood to mean keep her talking so she won't see. "Nice of you to say, Ichigo," she said, smiling again. "Sakai though. It's okay to forget." She tugged at his collar again and he leaned down. "Keep a secret," she whispered. "Sure," he whispered back. Anything to keep her quiet, at this point. "I never forgot," she said quietly. "Tried. Pretended. Renji helped. But I wasn't very good at it." "I didn't know that," he said. He hadn't when they'd finished their thing, whatever it was, she'd always been friendly enough. Glad to hear about his life, what he was willing to tell her. But that was all. "You never told me." "Well, of course." She rolled her eyes. "I'm Kuchiki, stupid. Had to get over you sooner or later, especially when you met that girl. Yucky. Yuko. Whatever." She waved a hand and nearly smacked him in the face. She was okay. Didn't really like the look of her. "But you were happy." He looked at her for a long moment. She probably had no idea what she was saying at the moment, and if she remembered later, she would kill him out of embarrassment. But there was no doubt that it was the truth. This sort of pain medication didn't make people lie, it just lowered their inhibitions. "Yeah," he said finally. "For a while." "Good. Good. Swat I wanted for you." She blinked slowly, as if her eyelids felt heavier. "Still do. So don't be stupid, okay?" "Okay, Rukia." She nodded, and her eyelids fluttered closed. He let out a deep breath. "I believe I am finished here, Kurosaki-san," Unohana said. "Thank you for distracting her." "No problem," he said queasily. "How's her leg?" "Much better than it was." She nodded at the limb, which was now tightly wrapped in bandages. "She'll need some follow-up treatment, but she should be able to put weight on it in a day or so." She stood. "Could I trouble you to carry her to one of our overnight beds? Is it okay to move her so soon?" "The break has healed," she said. "As long as she's not too hard on it for the next day or so, Kuchiki-san should be fine." He nodded and slid his arms beneath Rukia's knees and shoulders, careful not to wake her, but once Rukia decided to pass out, she'd passed out hard and didn't stir. She was a dead weight in his arms, but he had no trouble lifting her. It was only a short walk to one of the small recovery rooms, but he wouldn't have minded it lasting a little longer. It had been a long time since he'd held Rukia this close, felt her warm weight in his arms. It was nice, even if she was unconscious. She didn't stir when he laid her down again. He could have left then, but he stayed where he was, watching her breathe lightly. When he'd heard them call for Unohana, when he'd seen her injury, his veins had turned to ice more effectively than even Rukia's Shikai could manage. And what she'd said, what he'd felt when he touched her, he still didn't really know what he was doing in Soul Society, but one thing had become perfectly clear to him. He was still in love with Rukia. This should be a good thing, figuring out how he felt for her. But he couldn't make out how she felt for him. Despite her standoffishness, she'd apparently nursed feelings for him way past the point that he'd assumed she was over his butt. And that was good too, in a way. But she'd used the past tense. And what about Renji? He helped her get over him. Helped how? He had a sinking feeling that he knew exactly how, and it wasn't something he wanted to think about in detail. There were too many questions swimming through his mind to choose from, even if she'd been awake to answer. So he didn't bother. He just sat and watched her sleep. The next morning, he found himself awake in his own bed and staring at the ceiling long before he needed to be. He forced himself to wait until a reasonable hour before dressing and leaving. He had to meet with Hinamori and Hisagi later for yet more paperwork, but there was time to do this first. Members of the 11th Division may have had a reputation for drinking and partying, but no one could call them slackers when it came to a good fight. Ikaku was already drilling a squad of bloodthirsty-looking Shinigami in the yard when Ichigo arrived. "All right, move it, slugs. I want to see someone unconscious in 10 minutes or you're not trying hard enough. Hey." He nodded at Ichigo when he saw him. "What's up? Want to go around? I'm free after these chumps are finished." Ichigo steeled himself. "Is there something going on between Renji and Rukia?" Ikaku blinked. "Is that a no?" "I'm not here to fight, Ikaku." "Yeah, I guess not," he said. "Why are you asking me?" "Because it's not something I'm real comfortable marching up and interrupting Renji's day to ask. But it's okay to interrupt mine." Ikaku scowled. "Yes." Ichigo gave him a hard look. "Look. I'm not trying to drag you into the middle of anything. But if everyone's been tiptoeing around, not wanting to tell me because they think I'll freak, I just want to know, okay? I think I deserve to." "Fine," Ikaku said, and turned back to the brawling squad. "Hey. Almost Captain Kurosaki and I've got business to deal with, but that doesn't mean you get to slack off. Kick some butt, pansies. Come with me," he told Ichigo. He followed Ikaku around the corner to the back of the closest building. Ikaku leaned against the wall. So, Ichigo repeated. "So tell me already, okay? I can deal." "So the answer is, I don't know." Ichigo raised an eyebrow. "Come again." "What, you deaf?" "I said I don't know," Ikaku scoffed. "Renji's sleeping with someone and he thinks we don't know. Yumi, IBA, and me just figured we'd ignore it if he's feeling shy. Just gives us more ammunition for messing with him later. But I don't know if it's with her. I hope not. He'd be a fucking moron to go there again." His breath caught in his throat. "Again?" "Yeah." Ikaku nodded sharply. "I don't know if there's something going on with them now. But there was." "Oh." Ichigo closed his eyes for a moment. Even though he'd come here with expectation bearing down on him, it hurt more to know for sure than he'd thought it would. "I hope Renji learned his lesson from the experience," Ikaku said. "I like Kuchiki, really, but that girl did a number on him." "What? How?" He shrugged. "Don't know the details. I just know that one day Renji got his sheet together and said something and they were together for a while. Then they weren't and I had to deal with my drunken friend vomiting every night for like a month. Ichigo frowned, trying to process the thought without actually picturing Rukia and Renji together. Did he say what happened? Ikaku rolled his eyes. He wasn't exactly coherent and I don't remember the details anyway. It was a while ago, man. How long? Ikaku scratched his chin. 30 years maybe. He gaped. That long? Yeah. Why, you trying to get back with her or something? No, he said, knowing it didn't sound very convincing. Yet it was true, what Ichigo would like to do had little bearing on what he'd try to do, if Rukia had already moved on. Sure you're not. Ikaku snorted. Look, I gotta get back, they fall apart without supervision. Anything else you want to know first? No. He hesitated, then called out as Ikaku rounded the corner. Ikaku. Yeah. He looked over his shoulder. Do you know why they split? Ikaku gave him a long look. Why do you think? He turned around and walked away. Ichigo stood there a while, digesting what he'd heard. Renji and Rukia, a couple. He'd always known the other man harbored feelings for her. Hell, who wouldn't, once they knew her? But for a long time, it hadn't mattered. She'd been with Ichigo. Until she wasn't anymore. Could he blame her for moving on, or Renji for assisting her with that? Of course he could. He shouldn't, but he could. He wanted to punch Renji. He wanted to go to Rukia and act like none of the bullshit between them had ever happened. He wanted things to make sense again. But he had other things to do now. He closed his mind against the mental pictures it had been conjuring and took off to meet Hisagi and Hinamori. The past could wait. He'd deal with it later. 33 years ago, continued. A light snow was falling when Ichigo left the grocery for home, a stuffed paper bag in his arms. It was pretty, but he frowned. There was something about this time of the season that made him count the days until spring. Maybe it was the cold wind that whipped around buildings, or the way the nights felt deeper or longer. Maybe it was just because part of him would always associate it with war and the deaths or near deaths of friends, but winter had been his least favorite time of year for a long time now. He was nearly home when the shriek of his badge ripped through the air, yanking him out of his reverie. He didn't need the alarm to feel when the thick, malevolent ryatsu of a hollow emerging into this world splashed across his senses. Sheet. He fumbled for the badge, deep in his pockets. Why had he stuffed it down so far? Even if he hadn't used it in a long time, it was still important, and heard the roar of a hollow that had spotted prey. Sheet. He took off running, still grabbing for the badge, and had just rounded the corner when he saw it. It was an ugly fucker, but not the worst he'd seen. Got it. His fingers closed over the badge as a small figure in black flashed across the sky. It was behind the thing almost faster than Ichigo's eyes could track, and then the sword came down on the mask and it was all over. He stared. Rukia. She sheathed her sword and turned to him. Ichigo. There was something strange in her expression, apprehension. She seemed scared of what he was going to say. Could he blame her, considering the words he'd said last time they were near each other? It seemed so long ago. He forced a smile. What are you doing here? She gave him a smile that, to his eye, was just as uneasy. I don't really know, she murmured. Killing hollows. Yeah, I can see that. Good job, he said. Your form hasn't suffered any. She chuckled. And I'm supposed to believe yours has? Some of us age, Rukia. Oh. The air was quiet. Don't let me detain you from wherever you're going. Just home. He nodded at the bag. Do you want to come up and have a drink or something? It's a chilly night out. The cold does not bother me. I guess it wouldn't. He hesitated. Trying to talk to her was like stumbling through thick fog. Since when had he not been able to talk to Rukia? Even when he'd wanted to throttle her, half mad with heartbreak, the words had come easily. He settled for the simplest words he could muster. Come anyway. She nodded. All right. Once inside, he dropped the bag on the counter before opening the cabinet where he kept his alcohol. Nothing in there needed refrigeration, it could wait. Rukia was looking around curiously when he turned back to her, a bottle in hand. You live alone now? He'd expected that question and didn't wince. Yes. What happened to your? We split, he said. A while after I last saw you. I see. Guilt flashed across her eyes. I hope my appearance didn't cause any trouble between you. Nah. Don't worry about it. He grabbed a couple of glasses from the drying rack. Some things just aren't meant to be. He poured and slid her a glass. I know, she said softly. She accepted the drink. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me. He took a sip before answering. Can't be angry forever, I guess, he said. I still think I had reason to be. But I had to let it go. I get what you meant, now. We weren't something that was gonna last. It could have ended better, but that it's done, you know. It's past time to move on. The words were true, he'd accepted it for years now, but they still rang hollow in his mouth. She nodded, but didn't say anything, as inscrutable as she ever was when she wanted to be. He hesitated, feeling compelled to fill the silence but not sure what to say. So if you're ever here on a mission or something and you want to say hi or whatever, that's okay. I doubt I'll have much occasion to, she said, eyes darting to her right. But I will remember. Good. That's good. He nodded, feeling awkward. So what brought you here tonight? Oh, I'm not entirely sure, she said. There have been certain changes in Seoul society of late, certain things I must consider. I felt drawn away so that I could. And perhaps, to apologize once more. I told you, forget about it, he said. Whatever happened, happened. We're both moving forward. You're doing okay, right? Yes. I knew you would, he said. Whatever's going on there, just face it head on and kick its butt. You'll be fine. He was glad that the words sounded more confident than he felt. He wanted her to be okay, wanted them both to be, but he couldn't quite get rid of the tight feeling in his chest. And you? She asked. You are well. Good as ever. She narrowed her eyes. You have a gray hair, she said, pointing. He made a face. That's the Rukia I remember. So well-mannered. It's not my fault your hair is so ridiculously bright that the gray stands out. Keep looking, you'll find a few more, he said. I told you. I'm getting old. I would not call you truly old yet. Maybe not. He laughed. One of these days. Perhaps, she said, a smile at the corner of her mouth. She looked down at her drink. I should return. Now. He was surprised and strangely reluctant to see her go. You just got here. And you haven't finished your drink. I was drinking earlier, before I came. And it is late, and there are certain things I must attend to, she said. It has been good to see you again. You too, he said. Take care of yourself, Rukia. He watched her go, and didn't stop watching for a long moment. He suddenly felt exhausted. Moving backwards wouldn't work. Staying still wouldn't accomplish anything. All that was left for them was to move on. And she looked good, content even. It had been enough to let him hold back the words stuck in his throat. If he couldn't have her if they weren't going to work, ever better she be happy in her world than try to be part of his. He drained his drink and headed to bed. 30 years ago. Renji. The captain of the 9th Division looked over his shoulder, then stopped to wait for Rukia to catch up. Mornin', he said. It's about time you acknowledge my presence. She reached over to take his hand. Didn't you see me trying to catch your eye throughout the meeting? I dunno. He smiled faintly. I figured you'd be a dutiful vice captain and pay attention to everything Yamamoto said. Oh, hush, she said. Not that I distrust the commander's judgment, but I don't really see why we must have these meetings on a weekly basis. I've begun to memorize them. We could accomplish more at our respective offices. Yeah, I guess so. She squeezed his hand. I've got to return to my division soon, but I thought I'd walk you to yours first. Making sure I get back safe, Kuchiki. He smirked. I feel so protected. She elbowed him in the side by way of reply. You've been busy lately, she said. I am simply making sure we spend more time together. Guess I have been kinda wrapped up in work, he said. He remained quiet for a moment as they walked. Got a report from the living world the other day. You get many reports from the living world, she said, amused. This one was special, he said. Well, kinda. It was about Ichigo. Rukia stiffened with surprise and trepidation. Oh, she said, striving for a light tone. Yeah, he said, only looking at her out of the corner of his eye. You know we gotta keep tabs on him, Inoue, all of those guys. Turns out Ichigo was in a living world hospital this week, something with his heart, I don't know. It sounded pretty serious. They were making noises about prepping for his arrival in Soul Society. Her mouth seemed to go dry for an instant. Already, she said. That's so he should have years left. He was always very healthy. She wanted to cringe at the shrill note in her voice, and hoped Renji hadn't noticed. He probably still does, he said. False alarm, it looks like. He's gonna be all right. No surprise Ishida's not gonna let the guy die in his hospital and make him look like a bad doctor. She let out a long breath. I see, she said, trying to calm her whirling thoughts. She'd always wondered what it would feel to have Ichigo join her world. It seemed she would have more time to wonder. She didn't dare identify the tight emotion in her chest as disappointment. You okay with that? Why shouldn't I be? Idiot. She scowled for a moment before softening her expression. I want him to live his life and be happy, Renji. Like us. She leaned up expectantly and after a moment, he obliged, kissing her softly. The rest of the walk was quiet. Time alone together without any of their respective subordinates or duties clamoring for attention was a rare thing. She resolved to forget about Ichigo and his health scare and enjoy being near Renji, though he was being quieter than usual. She considered pressing him to talk more, but decided against it. If something were bothering him, she trusted him to tell her about it. Dinner tonight, she offered once they'd reached his offices. The usual time. He nodded. Sounds good. I'll see you then, she said. Try not to miss me. Heh. He looked away. I will. Renji. You're late. He looked from his desk, where he'd apparently been engrossed in paperwork. Rukia crossed her arms and stalked over to him. You were supposed to meet me for dinner at 8 o'clock. Oh, right. He rubbed at his temple. Time to go already. You will notice, Captain Abarai, that it is now 9 o'clock, she said pointedly. What does that tell you? Sheet. He sighed. Look, I'm sorry, Rukia. I've got a giant pile of paperwork and lazy but seated officers and it just slipped my mind. Won't happen again. I should. Hope not. It is all right to delegate, Renji. That's what we vice captains are for. She leaned over to kiss him and frowned when he drew back after only a moment. Is everything all right? You seem distracted. I'm fine. He closed his eyes before reaching over and to touch her hand. Just tired. Then you should rest more, idiot. Yeah. Look, I had some snacks from the break room earlier, but if you still want to get dinner, we can go. She studied him for a moment. It is late for dinner, she said. Perhaps we should just retire for the evening. Sure. He stood. Whatever you want, Rukia. Waking up was like dragging herself out of a long, dark tunnel. Rukia wondered at her exhaustion as she blinked away the fuzziness, and a glance at the window provided the answer. It was well before dawn, the only hint of sunrise a muddled grayness in the east. There was no point in staying awake, then. She rolled over to curl up against where a warm body should have been, but found only empty sheets. She sat up, looking around. Renji. He stood a few feet away, already fully dressed and tying the final knot in his uniform sash. He looked at her, but didn't meet her eyes. No, it was more like he wouldn't meet her eyes. Hey, he said after a pause. She tugged at her yukata where it had fallen down one shoulder. What are you doing up? It's so early. Come back to bed. He was quiet for a long moment. I don't think so, he said, finishing with the knot. She swung her legs around to touch the floor. You can't possibly be going to work this early. It's not even light out. Rukia. He closed his eyes. This ain't gonna work anymore. What? She frowned. What are you talking about? I'm saying we can't be together anymore, he said. It's over. She opened her mouth, closed it, and swallowed heavily. All right, she said in an even tone. Do I get to know why? It's just not going to work, that's all. That is not all. You seemed perfectly content last night. Now you want to break up. Why? He snapped to face her. Because, he said. You're still in love with Ichigo. She froze for an instant. That's not true. Yeah, it is, he said quietly. Took me long enough to see it. About time you did too. Stop it. She stood. That was years ago. I'm with you for a reason. Yeah, I know. But it's not the reason I hoped it was. He shook his head. You think I like saying this? I've been watching you for months now. I've been right here and you're just, somewhere else. I should have seen it sooner. You love him, not me, not the way I want you to. You never stopped. She sat back on the bed heavily. It doesn't matter anyway, she said. It would never work. We're a world apart. Idiot. The word was harsher than the tone. That won't last forever. Everyone dies. She laughed, but it came out more like a sob. I can't live like I'm waiting around for decades, she said. He's got his own life that has nothing to do with me. He moved on. And me, I tried. I know you did, he said. I wish it could have worked. But sooner or later he's going to step through the gate, and he's still going to want you. I don't think so. Think whatever you want. His voice grew hard. But I can't be what you need. So we're done. He slid the door open and stepped through. See you around, Rukia. The present day. Rukia fought the urge to wake, burrowing into her pillow and blanket before consciousness fully claimed her. It would be bad form to oversleep, but she just didn't want to move. Hey. Something poked her shoulder. Wake up, stupid. Renji. She opened one-eyed. He was hunched over in chair beside her bed, elbows resting on his knees. What are you doing in my room? Your room. Take a look around. Even as he spoke, she recognized where they were. This is, the fourth. Why am I here? Do you remember last night? Last night? She frowned. She focused, trying to recall. There was, a mission. I went with the squad. Her eyes went wide as memory rushed back. The Hollow. Is everyone all right? Calm down, they're fine, he said. You did a good job leading them. Least, until you're dumb but decided to jump in the middle. I did what I had to do. It isn't as though I wanted to be injured. She pushed the blanket and sheet down, wincing at all the bandages on her leg. This is not my idea of a pleasant morning, Renji. It's better than being dead. He reached over to shove her hand away as she probed her leg. Don't poke at it. Geez, you wanna open it back up again? Your bone was sticking out last night. It was? She blanched at the unsavory mental image. Yes. That's what Unohana said, anyway. I didn't make it here until after, he said. Your brother was here earlier, but you were still sleeping it off. I told him to take a hike and I'd make sure you got home all right once they gave the okay. You know how he gets hives if he's away from work too long. I'm fine now, she said. And I should return to work as well. She moved to swing her legs over the side of the bed and gaped at Renji when he stood quickly, blocking her in. Oh, no, you don't, he said, looming over her. You've already proven you don't have any sense of self-preservation. You go when Unohana says, not before. Renji. Shut up, he said flatly. What in the hell is wrong with you, Rukia? You know better than to go against a hollow when you're distracted. I don't care if it wasn't a big one. Even the small fry can kill. This one almost did. What were you thinking? I don't know, she gritted out. Does it matter now? The squad is alive. I am alive. Bullshit, he spat. Did you see Kurosaki yesterday? She closed her eyes. Stop it. No. Damn it, Rukia, I don't care if you want to sink yourself in denial forever, but I'm not gonna just watch you do it if it means you're going to get yourself hurt. Why can't you just admit to being human for once? Because I can't talk about this with you, she burst out. Damn it, Renji, you're the last person who should want to hear about this. It's not exactly my favorite subject, he said sharply, then sighed. He settled down beside her on the edge of the bed. But I wouldn't be a very good friend if I wasn't here to listen. Don't ask me to do this. Why not? I'm the one who screwed up things between us, she said, something inside her twisting with her words. It's my fault you and I could barely speak for years. I'm just grateful we've been able to rebuild our friendship. If I lost you again I couldn't take it, Renji. You don't have to listen. You don't owe me a DMN thing. His expression softened into annoyed fondness. Doesn't mean I'm not ready to do it anyway. Remember I told you once that nothing was gonna change the fact that I am always gonna be your friend? I meant it. Still do. And if you're miserable now, then what the hell did we go through all that for? She looked away. I don't even know what I should say. He rolled his eyes. You really are a moron, you know that? Before she could reply, the door slid open and Captain Unohana entered the room. Good morning, Vice Captain Kuchiki, she said. How are you feeling? Better, I think, Rukia said, summoning up all her professional reserves. I don't remember much after the hollow attacked me. That's not surprising, Unohana said. The medication I gave you is very potent. You were conscious, but scarcely aware of your surroundings. Did I say anything? She paused. You were rather chatty. Oh, did I see? Rukia bit her lip and wondered what exactly she had said to qualify as chatty. Please don't worry, Unohana said. I seem to have suffered a case of temporary amnesia and cannot recall anything you may have said. She gestured towards Rukia's leg. May I? Of course. She tensed, expecting pain, but the captain's fingers were gentle, and her flesh was not as tender as she had feared. You've healed very well, Unohana said. I see no reason why you cannot leave under your own strength, provided you move slowly and don't overdo it. I'll make sure she doesn't, Renji added. Rukia glared at him. Good. Unohana smiled. Please don't walk more than necessary, but I believe Kurosaki-san would like to hear that you're feeling better. He was very worried last night. Rukia froze. Ichigo was here. Unohana nodded. We were having tea when you were brought in. He helped distract you as I worked on your leg. You're free to go now, Vice Captain. Rukia stayed where she was, desperately searching through the black hole of her memory. What had she said to Ichigo? Hey. Renji nudged her shoulder. Come on. I'll walk you to your brother's place. And don't argue with me about going to the office or to your quarters. I want you somewhere with servants who can get sheet for you. You need to rest. He held out a hand to help her up. Coming. I'm coming. She was relieved to find the journey to the Kuchiki estate didn't tax her overmuch. It only took one punch to Renji's midsection to convince him he didn't need to carry her back. Once there, the servants took over his hovering duties, fussing over her far more than was necessary. Even so, the chance to relax was welcome. She wouldn't have admitted it to Renji, but her leg was starting to feel slightly wobbly. It was also nice to be home again. Her brother had not been entirely pleased when she'd elected to move into the private vice-captain's quarters out of division solidarity, but they were better at communicating these days, and he had eventually come to understand. She still spent enough time at home not to feel like a guest, and they made a point of having dinner together at least once a week. It would be good to spend time with him again. Once the servants were finished settling her and she was alone, her nervousness over what Captain Unohana had said caught up to her. She had been chatty, and Ichigo had been there to hear whatever she had chatted about. It wasn't that she was afraid she'd made a fool of herself all right, maybe a little, but she could hardly be blamed for a loose tongue as the result of medication. It wasn't her fault, and she could take some teasing. But Ichigo had been there last night, and he wasn't this morning, nor had he stopped in to see her. She'd been holding back so many things lately. Had any of them finally made it past her carefully constructed filters? As much as she told herself that fretting over it would be pointless, the thought still weighed on her when her brother returned from work. He joined her for dinner, the two of them alone in the stupidly large Kuchiki dining room. Conversation was still not an easy thing between the two of them, but Rukia knew tonight was even more silent than usual. Rukia. Byakuya spoke again as the servants took away their plates and set fresh cups of hot tea in front of them. Does your leg pain you? No, Nii-sama, she said. Captain Unohana was very thorough. Of course. His expression was as blasé as ever, but Rukia thought she detected a hint of worry in his eyes. It had taken many years for her to be able to see some of the emotions he hid, and more to trust that she was not imagining them. Does something else trouble you? Words of denial sprang to her tongue, but she held them back. It is nothing you should worry about, Nii-sama. He studied her carefully. I will respect your privacy, Rukia. But if you speak, I will listen. She clenched her hands into fists. Ni-sama, have you? Her throat was dry. It would be wrong to burden her brother, who had so many other important concerns, with her feelings, but she could not help herself. Have you ever wanted something you had no right to want anymore? He was very still. Yes, Rukia, he said. I believe I have. I don't know what I should do. She looked down. I cannot make that judgment for you, he said slowly. I can only counsel you to make the most honorable choice. I wish I knew what that was. He sipped his tea. Have you discussed this dilemma with the parties involved? I do not wish to burden others because of my weakness. Sharing with those who care enough to listen is no burden, he said. And holding back may be more harmful in the end. You are a Kuchiki. You will make the right decision. He stood. You should rest. She nodded. Ni-sama. Yes. He paused on his way out. What did you do? He was quiet for a moment. Many would say I made the wrong choice, he said at last. But for the 5 years following, I was happy. And I never doubted my decision. Back in her room, Rukia found herself staring at the ceiling. Things couldn't go on like this. She needed to let go of these feelings and let go of Ichigo. It was one thing to endanger herself because of distraction, but she would never forgive herself if her undisciplined emotions resulted in harm to her subordinates. Or she could say something to Ichigo. Lucidly, this time. It would be a stupid thing to do. Most likely, he would be kind and let her down gently and she would be humiliated. She rolled over, intent on sleep. The best thing would be to go to work as usual and act as if nothing had happened. But maybe. Kurosaki-san, is something bothering you? What? Ichigo looked up from his reports, annoyed that his train of thought had been broken. He was just starting to get a feel for the rhythm of how this place ran, and how he could run it. It wasn't at all like he was focusing on work to avoid thinking about the past romantic entanglements of his friends. Maybe if he told himself that enough, he would actually believe it. Hinamori rested her chin on one hand. You're holding your pen as if you're trying to snap it in half, she pointed out. And you've been reading that same report for 10 minutes. I'm just trying to be thorough. She pursed her lips. Maybe it's not my place to say it. Go ahead. He shrugged. It's not my place to tell you when you can talk. Perhaps you should speak to Vice Captain Kuchiki. He slumped back in his seat, too surprised to feign denial. DMN. Is it that obvious? Actually, no, she said reassuringly. Only a little. And you have the same expression Kuchiki-san had the night she came to proposition you with tea, so I assumed. Whoa, wait. Back up. He jumped to his feet and waved his hands in front of her even as he tried to force the words to make sense in his mind. The night she what? You hadn't realized it yet? Hinamori blinked. No. What there's nothing to realize. It was just tea. Tea and the chance to talk, she pointed out. It was easy to see at the time, but I didn't feel it was my place to say anything. She seemed quite emotional. I had tea with Unohana the other night and I'm DMN sure she wasn't trying to start anything with me, he said. She wasn't, right? I doubt it, she said. That would only give Captain Zaraki more reason to want to fight you. What? No, wait. I don't want to know. Hinamori's eyes sparkled with amusement. Still. Rukia doesn't have a problem saying what she thinks, he insisted. Loudly. If she wanted tea and stuff, she'd just say so. Maybe. Not maybe. That's just how she is. Many people act more confident than they are, she said. That's part of being brave. You could always ask her yourself. Ichigo paused at that, imagining what that would be like. Rukia had acted strangely around him, but after what she'd confessed about how Renji had helped her get over him, he'd assumed it was because she didn't want to tell him about her past with the other man. I wouldn't want to put her on the spot like that. Hinamori nodded. Women and their confusing secret codes once again. He'd never get it. What? Nothing. Just You are one insubordinate vice captain, he grumped. Just doing my job. She signed a report. Sir. Some job, he said, frowning as he stared into space. He still couldn't quite bring himself to trust in Hinamori's words. But then, she seemed pretty confident, and he certainly wasn't always the most perceptive guy. Moreover, he wanted to believe in her assessment of the situation. It sent a shot of hope through him, along with just a touch of terror. She picked up another report. May I ask a personal question? Yeah, sure. What do you think is the worst that could happen if you said something? I could F up our friendship, for starters, he said. What's left of it? If he lost what relationship he had left with Rukia.it didn't bear thinking about. Hey. He was starting to get annoyed. That's a big deal. I know, she said, eyes soft. But if your friendship is strong, it will survive. There are worse things than a little awkwardness. She touched her stomach lightly. It isn't as if she'd want to hurt you simply for having feelings for her. Ichigo winced. Privately, He thought maybe he'd prefer getting stabbed in the stomach to messing things up with Rukia again, but that wouldn't be the best thing to say to out loud. You've made your point. In any case, you're free to go if you have somewhere you'd like to be. She leaned back, stretching her arms. We've been at this enough for one day. Hey, aren't I supposed to dismiss you, Vice Captain? Then again, she still knew more than he did about the division. Anyway, I'm not tired. We could get more done. Take advantage of the free time while you can. Once everything is official, we'll be spending many more hours here, she said. The ceremony is in 2 weeks. Do you think you'll be ready? Sheet. He blinked. That soon? I hadn't even realized. She nodded. Captain Hisagi asked me to let you know he wants to go over a few final things before the transfer, but you're coming along well. He's not worried about the change of command anymore. So he was before, huh? Heh. As long as he doesn't try to micromanage things when he's gone. It's hard to let go, she said. Even when it's the right thing. No kidding, he said, and pushed his chair back to stand. See you tomorrow, then. Good luck, Kurosaki-san, she said, smiling. He set off with every intention of going to see Rukia. At the very least, he should check how she was doing after being released from the 4th. At the most, well, he'd figure that out when the time came. He found himself walking towards the 9th Division instead. Maybe it was because the workday was well over, but no one stopped him from heading right to the main office where there was no captain to be found. A sliding door in the back of the room was open, though, and Ichigo stepped through to find Renji sitting there, overlooking a koi pond. Yo. Ichigo. Renji nodded at him. Knew that was you. You still can't keep your Ryatsu to yourself. You're just oversensitive. Whatever. Sit if you want. Ichigo sat and wondered what he wanted to say. So Renji had been involved with Rukia, big deal. It wasn't like Ichigo had never been aware of the other man's feelings. As long as he avoided certain mental pictures, he could handle the past. The present was trickier. What was the proper way to ask an old friend if he was still sleeping with your mutual ex-girlfriend? What if Renji said no? Ichigo would feel like a complete but for throwing it in his face. What if he said yes? He wasn't sure what he'd do then. If Rukia was truly out of his reach for good, Ichigo didn't want to know about it even if he needed to. What's on your mind? Renji asked. If Ikaku sent you to persuade me to join them, you can tell him to go screw. What? That fishing thing he and Yumachika and Yachiru are doing this weekend, he said. They like to go out into Rukongai once in a while. Yumi says it's about nostalgia and reforging. They're bonds of friendship, but I think he just thinks it's funny when Ikaku spears fish with Hozukimaru. Yachiru just grabs M with her bare hands. Captain Zaraki knows better, but they always try and drag some others along for kicks. No, Ichigo said, thrown off balance by this choice of topic. He didn't send me. But thanks for the warning. I'll make sure to avoid him the rest of today. No problem. Renji glanced at him. Thought he might have because he told me you guys talked yesterday. Their eyes met. He did, huh? He thought you might be interested in fishing. Ichigo frowned. The hell? He'd braced himself for something, anger, an apology, something, and here Renji was just going on about a DMN fishing trip neither of them cared about when. Oh. This was one of those metaphor things. Yeah, he said, picking his words carefully. We talked about fishing. I hadn't gone in a while. Busy being old, you know. That'd be a problem. Renji leaned back on his hands. Thinking of trying it again now that you're hale and hearty? I suppose I could. It might be nice. Wouldn't know until I tried. Not sure if it's a good idea, though. I'm still figuring this place out and, I don't really know the good spots. Maybe I should just leave it in the past. The fishing. Ichigo wondered if Renji felt as moronic as he did. Right. Fishing. I used to know a good spot, Renji said in a low tone. Had some good times there. Ichigo tensed. Really? Renji looked away. But not anymore. Not in a long time. Ichigo let out a long breath. The sense of relief was so palpable he felt lightheaded. That's too bad. It's all right. Renji shrugged. I still stop by, just to make sure everything's okay there. But I found a new fishing spot. It's working out okay so far. If you want to try the one I had, well, I can't lay any claim to it. Up to you to decide if it works for you. Thanks, Ichigo said, trying to keep the surge of elation down. As much as he wanted to run straight to Rukia, he wanted to make sure things were settled with Renji, too. A friend was a friend. 'Cause I've been thinking I'd really like to. But I don't want to intrude somewhere I'm not wanted. Renji snorted. You've been doing that your whole life, Ichigo. But you should be okay. I'm pretty sure you should check this place out. Ah. Ichigo stood. Maybe I should do that now. Ichigo. Renji turned to him, his expression deadly serious. I don't have to tell you that if you hurt her, I will beat the shit out of you. He just nodded, not breaking eye contact. On this subject, they were in complete agreement. Ichigo didn't bother considering that he might find Rukia anywhere but in her office. She'd probably gotten a DMN rash just from taking time off to heal. Even if her division was crowded with Shinigami, he'd be mad if he let them stop him now. She was at her desk when he arrived, writing industriously. Same old Rukia. 2 DMN predictable. He didn't try to resist the smile this thought prompted. Rukia. She looked up in surprise. Ichigo. Hey. His mouth was dry. We need to talk. Now. She looked nervous. I would be happy to speak with you, but I really must finish these reports for Captain Yucatake. Yes, now. He strode forward. She jumped up from her seat and snatched up the papers. Just let me give these to the captain and we can find a better place. He stepped in front of her. Forget them. He put his hands on her shoulders. She stared up at him with wide eyes. Rukia, I don't, damn it, the words wouldn't come. Oh, F it, he mumbled. What are you? Ichigo slid his arms down around her waist, pulled her close, and bent her back to kiss her. Rukia's papers dropped to the floor. If any part of the world existed beyond Rukia in his arms and her mouth against his, Ichigo wasn't aware of it. This is it. What I've been missing. She was warm and soft and his neck didn't hurt at all from leaning over her. Even with her off balance, it was easy to support her as he kissed her. She still fit. They still fit together. Rukia moved her arms up his, holding onto his sleeves. Her lips moved softly under his. After a moment, an hour. A year. He pulled away just far enough to see her face. He could still feel her breath against his lips. At some point Rukia had closed her eyes. They fluttered open again and he smiled. She looked a little dazed. He had just enough time to feel proud of causing this before she reared back and slammed her forehead into his nose. Ichigo's world exploded in pain. Ow. What the F dash? He clamped his hands over his nose, dropping Rukia as he did so. She staggered backwards, nearly falling over. What the hell are you doing? She hissed. What am I doing? You just broke my nose, you beach. It is not even bleeding, fool. And don't change the subject. And be quiet. My captain is in the other room at this very moment. Her face was lit up with ire. He prodded his nose and immediately wished he hadn't. Might not be broken, but it still hurts like F dash. What was that for? What was that for? She repeated incredulously. What was it for? Ichigo. You do not just march into someone's office and manhandle them without even asking permission. What were you thinking? I guess I wasn't. Rukia glared at him like she wanted him to drop into a hole. At the moment, he wouldn't mind. I should think not, she snapped. Anger flared in him. Damn it, Rukia. I wasn't trying to embarrass you. I just after what you said the other night. What I said. Her fierce expression began to drain away. What did I say? Nothing. It doesn't matter anymore, he said. Ichigo. Sorry. I guess I just lost my head. I'll go. He turned and walked away, glad she couldn't see his face anymore. He'd been so sure. He paused at the door and tried to think of something to say that could possibly salvage the situation before fleeing to his quarters and never coming out. He was stopped by feeling of a small hand on his back. Wait. Rukia had gone mad. It was the only adequate explanation for her current circumstances. The stress of her recent injury, along with the extra paperwork that had built up over even a day's absence, and the fact that she'd spent much of the day debating what to say to Ichigo, had combined to cause hallucinations. That, or he really had stormed into her office looking blotchy and agitated and practically molested her. Madness was also the only understandable reason why she'd stopped him. Wait, she said softly, reaching out to touch his back. Ichigo. The fabric of his uniform was smooth against her hand. She imagined she could feel his heartbeat beneath it. It was a long moment before he turned around. She leaned her head against his chest, letting her hair fall in front of her face. You're hopeless idiot, she said. You don't just grab a person like that. It's rude. Rukia. His hands rested lightly on her back, as if he thought she'd twist away if he held too tight. I didn't say you could talk, she said. She looked up and her breath caught. He was so close. He had a tiny smudge of ink beside his nose, she noted absently. You should have better manners than that after all this time. Never bothered with M. A ghost of a smile turned his lips and he drew her closer. Idiot. You're so stupid. Something between a scoff and a laugh emerged from her throat and then her arms were around his neck and they were kissing, really kissing this time. She could feel his skin and taste his mouth when his tongue slipped past her lips and she couldn't let go, wouldn't, because if she stopped then this might not be real. Ichigo made a noise in the back of his throat. She'd forgotten he did that. She'd forgotten how much it made her want to devour him. It had been over 40 years. How had she made it 40 days? Rukia. Ichigo attempted to speak between kisses, but she didn't give a damn about words just now. 40 years. How stupid had they both been? Rukia, hold on. Shut up, she muttered, and bit him on the chin. I said no talking. DMN, he breathed, and kissed her again. Lips and tongues and teeth all got involved and there was no gentleness to this one, none, but she didn't care. Rukia. Ichigo lifted her onto her toes to whisper in her ear. Where's Yukitake? She jumped back, startled. For a moment, Ichigo still held his arms out in a parody of an embrace. She liked her lips nervously and he dropped them, eyes locked on her. Sorry, he said. I didn't think about him after well. She glanced over her shoulder at the door that connected their offices. Nothing. If he'd heard them, Captain Yukitake had chosen to be discreet. I know. Should I, come back later? She opened her mouth to say yes. Come back later and they could talk. Give them both time to calm down. No. Ichigo's face dropped. Oh. Okay. I'll just. He waved his hand in a vague gesture, but she caught it in hers. Don't come back later, she said. Come now. Ichigo had gone mad. The thought kept running through his mind as he and Rukia walked quickly through the halls of her division. The two of them rushing to her quarters so they could be alone, her presence just touching his side. He still half expected that all this would turn out to be a fantasy or a fever dream. Only iron control and other people's walking through said halls kept him from touching her. She'd kill him for getting grabby in public. But if this was madness, it was the best kind, and it was everything he'd wanted and way more than he'd expected. And did he even remember how to do it? Stupid question. It had to be something you never forgot. Like riding a bike, really, and DMN he didn't need to be thinking about riding until they were properly alone, which needed to be really soon. He just hoped his riding skills hadn't rusted. "Where the F do you live?" he hissed under his breath. "You don't know?" She glanced sideways at him. "No. You never showed me." "An oversight on my part, clearly." "Here." He nearly went right past her as she rounded a corner and stopped dead. "Here." If he'd been in a normal state of mind, Ichigo might have been embarrassed at the way he practically fell on her the moment they entered her quarters. Rukia didn't seem to mind, though, reaching out blindly to slam the door shut before wrapping her arms around his neck. This was more like it. Ichigo would have sighed happily if his mouth wasn't plastered to Rukia's. The room was dark and quiet aside from them, all indications of passing time gone, and he wasn't sure if they spent a minute or an hour like that. Just getting to touch her again like this was almost a form of release, but not quite, not yet, and he really wanted to get to that. With great reluctance, he reached behind his neck to pull her hands away. Rukia made a noise of annoyance and he pulled away far enough to get his hands between them. "Ichigo. Shut up." He leaned in to kiss her below her jaw, moving his mouth down as he pulled her robes open to give him access to her skin. "Let me." He dropped to his knees and began working at the knot of her sash. For once, she listened to him and let him work, though she didn't stop touching. He frowned in concentration as he picked at the knotted figure. She had tied it tightly and perfectly. Rukia's fingers traced his face as he worked, ghosting over his eyebrows, his cheeks. A thumb trailed over his mouth and he paused to bite it gently, pulling the tip into his mouth to suck on it before continuing. Finally, the knot came free. He looked up as he pulled her robes open, exposing her chest. She smiled above him before shrugging them off her shoulders to let them fall around her waist. Rukia would have giggled if she didn't think it would spoil the moment. Ichigo was trying very hard to make this good, she was sure, but he was also staring at her BRSTS like he hadn't seen any in a very long time. Well, perhaps he hadn't. Still, if they were in a different set of circumstances, she might have teased him to wipe up his drool. As it was, she was more eager for him to stop looking and start doing. "Stand up already," she told him, and he quickly complied. Whatever awe her unclothed chest had inspired, it didn't impede his actions. A tiny thrill twisted inside her as Ichigo leaned over to nibble at her shoulder, then paused when she moved her arms. "What are you doing?" "Multitasking," she murmured, and set to work on the knots of his sash. He wasn't the only one desperate to get rid of clothing. He also wasn't the only one who needed to see and touch bared skin. She traced the scars on Ichigo's chest with her fingers, following with her tongue. Ichigo let out a strangled groan and, before she could react, bent to scoop her up in his arms, pressing her against the wall. "You're such a beach," he mumbled into her neck between bites. Rukia chose to answer by socking him in the arm and wrapping her legs around his waist. It wasn't that his arms weren't strong enough to support her, this was just more fun. "Ichigo," she panted. "Take off your pants." "I can't do it for you, moron." She squeezed her legs around him. "Once. Just hurry up and do it." He couldn't have dropped her to her feet and yanked the ties of his hakama free any faster if he'd used flash steps. Not one to waste time given to her, she did the same, kicking her hakama aside as it hit the floor. Ichigo stepped to embrace her once more, this time with nothing between them. "Rukia." His eyes were shining. "Shoo." She kissed him softly as he lifted her in his arms again. "Don't say anything." When Ichigo came back to reality, he was collapsed on top of her, both of them breathing heavily. She stroked his back, and neither of them spoke for several minutes. "Ichigo," she muttered at last. "You're crushing me." He bit back a caustic comment and rolled them over so that she was on top, her head resting against his chest. "Better?" "Yes," she said, breath tickling his skin. "Much." They lay together in silence. Ichigo would have been content to stay like that forever if one thing wasn't bothering him. "Rukia?" She already sounded half asleep. "Well. Spit it out, Ichigo. Why did we wait so long?" There was a long pause. "Rukia? Since when did you start feeling chatty after SEC?" she grumbled. "Hey, if I'm interrupting your beauty sleep." She cut him off by placing her hand over his mouth. "You're not," she said quietly, and swiped her thumb across the skin beside his nose. "What was that?" "Oh," she said, "just a bit of ink." "What?" He touched his face. "This whole time? And you just now told me?" "I was distracted." She was smiling, so instead of teasing her or starting an argument, he wrapped his arms tighter around her and ran his fingers up and down the skin of her back. He couldn't seem to stop touching her. "Ichigo." Her voice was soft in the quiet room, as if she weren't even certain she wanted him to hear her. "Yeah." She sat up on an elbow to face him better, though he refused to relinquish his hold on her waist. Her eyes looked serious. "What do we do now?" He hesitated. He wasn't certain what kind of answer he could give or what she expected. He settled for pulling her closer and kissing her. "That's not an answer," she pointed out when their lips parted. "Now who's chatty?" Before she could answer, he rolled them over so he was pressing her down onto the futon. "We'll figure this out, Rukia, but can we enjoy the moment first?" He leaned down to kiss her neck. "We've got a lot of years to make up for." She ran a hand through his hair. "I suppose, that is acceptable." "Good." He grinned against her skin and proceeded to make sure they had no need for words. The sharp knocks on the door were enough to snap Ichigo awake, but it took him a few disoriented seconds to remember where he was. It wasn't until Rukia stirred in his arms, making the soft breathy sounds of someone still deeply asleep, that he remembered, and smiled. He debated the wisdom of kissing her good morning. On one hand, well, he really wanted to. On the other, they'd been awake and tiring themselves out for much of the night. She might not appreciate being woken out of a sound sleep. On yet another hand, physical impossibilities aside, whoever was at the door was still knocking. If he didn't want her to wake up, he'd have to take care of it. He sat up, easing Rukia off him, and his eyes fell upon the closet where she'd kept the futon. A pile of neatly stacked furoshiki cloths sat on a shelf. Perfect. Moving quickly but quietly, he snatched one of the large cloths from the shelf and wrapped it around his waist. Whoever was at the door knocked a third time, and as he came closer, he could hear a hissed argument on the other side. "Told you she's obviously not here, so let's just go." "Shut up. Give her a chance to answer, not everyone else hops around like a hyper monkey." Ichigo slid the door open to see Sentaro and Kaione on the other side. "Can I help you?" Kaione just blinked while Sentaro's jaw dropped. We just wanted to see if Rukia-san would like to join us for breakfast," Kaione stammered. "We wanted to treat her since she was hurt on duty." "Oh." Ichigo glanced behind him. Rukia was still dead to the world. "Well, she's kinda busy." Kaione burst out, nodding eagerly. "Yes, very busy. That's our vice captain, always getting a jump on the day. Please don't bother to tell her we were here, we'll just see her later, much later, she's still recovering, and don't worry, we'll explain to Captain Yukatake." Ichigo wasn't sure he liked the sound of them explaining anything to Rukia's captain. "Hey, you don't have to. It's no trouble at all." She yanked the sleeve of her gaping partner, who hadn't moved an inch. "Come on, Ape, they want to be alone." "But. Now." In a flurry of flailing limbs and barked insults, they were gone. Ichigo sighed. Rukia was not going to be thrilled about this. He probably should have just let them wander off on their own. At least Rukia hadn't woken up. She'd rolled over onto her side in his absence, facing away from him. That was okay with him. He slid under the top comforter and wrapped an arm around her waist, holding her back against his chest and spooning himself around her body. He dropped back to sleep, relaxed and content. Interruptions aside, this was a good morning. When she found herself drifting awake, Rukia squeezed her eyes shut tighter and attempted to burrow under the covers. She snapped to alertness when an arm whose presence she hadn't even noticed tightened around her and she felt lips press against her shoulder. "Morning," Ichigo murmured. She twisted around onto her back so she could see him, leaning on one elbow above her. "Morning," she echoed, and closed her eyes for a moment when he kissed her. When he pulled back, she tugged at the blanket to allow her more modesty. Amusement sparkled in Ichigo's eyes. "You know, I have seen it before," he pointed out. "A lot." "I don't tell you how to act," she grumbled. "You could stand to be more modest too, walking around with your sword released all the time." He rolled his eyes. "I'll keep that in mind," he said. "When I'm a captain." "Oh." She sat up so sharply their faces nearly collided. "Hey, watch it. My nose is still sore from where you bashed it in yesterday." "What time is it?" She fumbled to get out from under the covers. "Oh, no, it must be late. I've got to get dressed." "Hey, wait." He grasped her wrist. "Don't just run off. We should talk." "You should have woken me earlier," she said. "I do have responsibilities to take care of. And I'm sure you have somewhere to be as well." Despite her words, though, she couldn't bring herself to pull her wrist away. As much as she needed to leave, she was too warm and comfortable here with Ichigo. "Just kiddo practice first thing," he said. "I'm not meeting Hinamori and Hisagi until later. And they probably already know you're going to be late, because those two loons from your division already stopped by." Rukia stiffened. "Sentaro and Kion were here." "Eh." Ichigo smiled weakly. "Sorry. I should have just let them knock, I know, but you looked so peaceful, I didn't want it to wake you. I chased him off." She flushed. "I wish you had not done that." "They didn't see anything," he protested. "What, is it so important to have breakfast with a couple people you see every day? Or do you just not want anyone to know you slept with me?" "No. That is, no, I'm not trying to hide anything." She grasped his hands in hers. "I don't regret this. I simply have no desire to expose our private business to scrutiny." "I don't want that either." He looked relieved. "Good. We're in agreement, then," she said, and felt a little stupid at how businesslike she sounded. Forcing herself to relax, she leaned back into the sheets. "I suppose being a little later to the office than I already am won't make much of a difference." He curled up beside her. "I like the way you're thinking now." She settled in and touched his relaxed face lightly. It was a contrast to how tense he'd looked when he'd barreled into her office. "What happened yesterday?" she asked. "What brought this on?" "How much do you remember of the night the hollow got you?" he asked. "Oh. That. Very little," she said carefully. "I remember the hollow, and falling. After that, just a haze. I think I remember talking." She flushed, still uncertain she wanted to remember what she had talked about. "Yeah, there was talking." He chuckled. "You said you missed me. That's all." "Oh hell no," he said, looking far more amused than she felt was warranted. "You also complimented my butt." "I did not," she protested. "You're making that up." "I swear, Rukia, it's the truth. It's not my fault it left an impression on you." He probably was, she realized. He was grinning far too much to be telling tales. That's all it took, she asked. You were inspired by me ogling you under medication. It didn't hurt. She smacked his arm. Pig. That wasn't all, he said, catching her hand in his and rubbing the back of it with his thumb. You said that you tried to forget me. Forget us. But you weren't very good at it. She looked away. That much was true. Anything else? Just some babbling, he said. Nothing important. It was enough. Oh. I just got sick of it, he said, and now he looked serious and held her hand tightly. You could have punched me in the face, but I was tired of pretending that I was fine, that I wasn't feeling things I wasn't supposed to. I was just lying to myself. I was lying to you. She swallowed heavily over the lump in her throat. And now? He spread his hands. I'm not lying anymore, he said. I guess now we just decide where we want to go from here. Where we go from here, she repeated quietly. Before last night I didn't let myself think about being with you like this again. Even if I wanted to. She touched his face. I thought it wouldn't be fair to you. I didn't think you thought about me this way anymore, either. Like I said, I was lying to myself, he said. I'm sick of that. It doesn't do either of us any good. I just want to be with you now. Like it was before. She smiled faintly. It's more complicated than that, she said. I don't want things to be just like they were before. It's not like it ended well between us. I hurt you. I don't want to hurt you again. His expression softened. Dumbass, he said. I'm not worried about that. Things are different now. They are different, she agreed, resting her fingers on his. For both of us. You lived, Ichigo. Don't tell me you didn't change, too, in all that time. We both did. We can't just pretend neither of us are different. I know I can't, he said. Doesn't change the way I feel, though. A rush of warmth ran through her body. What happened between us last night was wonderful, she said. But it doesn't automatically fix everything between us. There are things to consider, to discuss. I just don't want us to get ahead of ourselves and have it go badly because we rushed into things. I wouldn't call waiting a few decades rushing into things, he said, sounding both annoyed and affectionate. I wouldn't either. She smiled. But I want to get things right this time. It's worth it to take our time. She leaned over and kissed him deeply. He held the kiss for a long time before pulling away. So. I really do need to get to work now. She grimaced. I don't want to imagine what those idiots are telling Captain Yucatake. I'd like to cut them off if I can. Yeah, sorry about that. She pinched his side. You should be. Beach. He made a face. It didn't take long for them to get up and dress again, much as neither wanted to leave. They paused beside her door before leaving. I'll just, see you later, then, Ichigo said. She nodded. Of course. Good. He hesitated, then kissed her quickly. Later, Rukia. Goodbye, she said, and watched him leave. Funny, she thought. It was the first time in a long while that saying those words didn't feel like an ending. Ichigo left Rukia's quarters uncertain how he felt about the situation. So, he'd had SEC with her. Several times, in fact, he wasn't sure of the exact number, as they'd seemed to meld into each other as the night grew deeper and the two of them grew more tired. And while the SEC was good, it was the meaning behind it that counted. It wasn't just a physical thing. It meant something. But then, he didn't quite know where to go from here. He didn't have a problem with taking their time now that they had time, but all his instincts were telling him to move forward. The tip of his tongue slipped out to brush where their lips had touched before he caught himself. Trying not to cringe at his own pathetic resemblance to a lovesick teenager, he stomped off to the headquarters of his division. At least he knew where to go from here in the literal sense. Hinamori was sorting through reports at her desk when he arrived. "Yo," he greeted her. "What are you doing here?" she asked, looking up with a confused expression. He blinked. "Should I be somewhere else?" "Yes, actually," she said. "The 6th Division, about 20 minutes ago." "What?" He stared. "No, I'm not. I have another day or so before that visit." She shook her head. "It's today." "Sheet," he swore. Going from one Kuchiki's bed to the other one's office was not part of his plan for a good day. "Sheet." Hinamori raised an eyebrow. "You're only a bit late. You can still go. Can I just say I was sick? Captain Kuchiki is not your superior, so of course you could," she said, grinning. "Though as your vice-captain, would be interested in knowing what kind of illness you've come down with. It could be contagious." He turned around. "I'm going." It was a quick trip to the 6th Division, something that didn't exactly please Ichigo. The door to Byakuya's office was open when he arrived, but he still knocked against the doorframe. There was just something about He-Man that made a guy not want to barge into his space. Byakuya didn't even look up from his paperwork. "Enter." "Hey," Ichigo said uneasily. "I know I'm late." "Yes." The single word was delivered in a clipped tone. "So, you still got me penciled into your appointment book, or do we need to reschedule?" After a long pause, Byakuya set his inkbrush carefully to the side of his papers and directed his gaze at Ichigo. It was as cold and penetrating as he remembered, and Ichigo fought the urge to glare back out of reflex. He thought he could detect a hint of displeasure in the other man's eyes and wondered if Byakuya could somehow tell what had happened the night before. Could Rukia's Ryatsu have rubbed off on him somehow? "That is entirely up to you," Byakuya said at last. "You are here to observe and learn, if you so choose. I am not your teacher." "Really?" Ichigo shifted on his feet. "I got the impression you'd have plenty to say." Byakuya lifted a shoulder in a way that on a less noble person would have been a shrug. "The decision has already been made. You will be a captain, one of my," he paused, "peers, and as such you may take away as much or as little from the experience as you like." There was another pause as Ichigo struggled to decipher whether he was subtly telling him to get the hell out or not. Probably not, he decided. Peer, or not, Byakuya had never had any qualms about being a rude a-hole in the past. "I'll stay." Byakuya turned back to his paperwork. "Fine." Ichigo waited for him to finish up whatever he was working on and set it aside so they could get down to business. He didn't. After 5 more minutes of waiting, it became apparent that Byakuya had meant, observe, quite literally, as he apparently had no intention of explaining what or why he was doing. "So, do you normally have this much paperwork in the morning?" "I have this much paperwork all the time," he remarked. "As will you. I find it's best to take care of it as soon as possible instead of avoiding the responsibility." "Aha." Ichigo shuffled over and peered at the reports from the side of the desk. Byakuya paused for a moment, as if to protest, then continued. "Anything interesting here?" "To you, likely not. So, nothing really helpful for your future peer." He turned another page. "No." Ichigo scowled and shut up. There were a few things he'd like to say, but he could just tell Byakuya was relishing the chance to shut him down with that nobler-than-thou tone of utter calm. He did feel dumb just standing there, though, so he was just a little glad to see Byakuya put his brush down a few minutes later and stand. Come. He hadn't been to all 13 divisions yet, but strolling around with Byakuya on his morning rounds, Ichigo thought that 6th must be the most rigidly organized division of them all. Hell, stroll wasn't even the right word. It was far too loose. Kuchiki Byakuya moved forward with purpose, though he never appeared to hurry. Wherever they went, squads were busy with drills. He wasn't sure if they felt their captain's Ryatsu approaching or getting a Byakuya-sized stick-up ones, but was the first thing that happened upon joining the division. And Renji had been vice-captain here. It was probably a good thing the war had cut his tenure short and prompted immediate promotion. Ichigo couldn't imagine him being so stiff. Plus he was getting bored. He'd been interested in seeing just what a captain did all day when he'd first arrived and barely knew what he was doing, but this wasn't anything he couldn't see in his own division. He didn't expect it when Byakuya stopped on a pathway that overlooked his current vice-captain running a training session on the parade ground. "Do you have questions?" Ichigo leaned back to take in the view. "Looks like you run a pretty tight ship here." Byakuya nodded at him, which was probably the closest thing he'd get to a "thank you." "I think." He hesitated for a moment before storming ahead. "I think there's no DMN reason for me to be here." Byakuya merely raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Yeah, really. Hell, you don't want me here either, do you?" Byakuya's face didn't even twitch. "Well, whatever. What's the point of this? By now I'm either ready or I'm not. You voted me in, you should know." Byakuya made a noncommittal noise. "What? You don't agree?" Prodding Kuchiki Byakuya probably wasn't the wisest thing he could have done, but Ichigo was annoyed enough that he didn't really care. "As you say, you will shortly be captain," Byakuya said. "How you choose to educate yourself in preparation for such a responsibility is at your own discretion. I am merely doing as Captain Yamamoto asked by availing my division's procedures and grounds to you. Decide for yourself what to do next." "I will," he said. "I have. I'm done. I'm ready. As you say. I'm going." He turned to leave. "I'll let Yamamoto know myself. Time to get things started." Byakuya waved a hand dismissively. "Good. So, bye." Byakuya was probably just happy to get him out of his hair, but Ichigo didn't care. Hell, they were peers now, right? Forget the snob. Yeah. He could handle this. He was ready. Still, as he turned to go, he couldn't help thinking he saw a hint of amusement in Byakuya's eyes. The thing about becoming a captain was that no one warned you about anything. They just thought you could take whatever came along. Honor, prestige and a crisp white Haori were all well and good, but the massive, migraine-inducing pile of paperwork that came with them left a lot to be desired. He'd anticipated lots of work once the position was officially his. It was just that no one had told him that the workload would spike to such high levels before the official ceremony that would make him captain of the 5th Division. "Congratulations, Hinamori," had said, eyes sparkling. "Now just fill out these 200 forms in triplicate and the office is yours." So she hadn't said it quite like that. It had been close enough that Ichigo found himself dashing over to the 13th on his lunch break instead of walking just so he could hope for enough time to see Rukia. Everything had been so crazy for the last couple of days. Since he'd decided he was ready for the captaincy that they hadn't even had a chance to talk again, just shared brief looks in passing. Yukitake was just entering the main office when Ichigo trotted up. "Good afternoon, Ichigo-kun," he said with a pleasant smile. "Can I help you with something?" "I was actually looking for Rukia," he said after a moment's hesitation, wondering how much Yukitake knew. Sentaro and Kion had big mouths, but they wouldn't really have said exactly what they saw, right? Rukia hadn't come to kill him yet to avenge her embarrassment, so probably not. "Ah. Unfortunately, she's out doing some field training with a squad all afternoon," Yukitake said. "Can I pass along a message?" No thanks. I was just stopping by to see how she was." Fully recovered, Yukitake assured him. "I meant to come thank you for looking out for her when she was injured." "No big deal." Ichigo shrugged. "I was there. Of course I stayed when she needed me." "I don't doubt that. As Rukia's captain, I've always been glad she could rely on you," he said. "Personally as well as professionally." I care about her a great deal. I know she likes you a lot too. Yukitake nodded. I want to see her happy. His gaze bored into Ichigo. I hope it's not intrusive to say I was sorry when the two of you separated years ago. I know you made her happy. I tried, Ichigo said, his face burning up. He was grateful when Yukitake looked away. Still. I'm sure you understand why she remained here in Soul Society, he said. She's come so far over the years. She's blossomed. He looked back at Ichigo. And now here you are. Strange, how these things come in cycles. Yeah, Ichigo hedged, trying to figure out what the older captain was getting at. Was this a way of giving his blessing? A veiled threat that he'd better make Rukia happy again? I never thought of it like that, but I guess it's true. Listen to me. Yukitake shook his head. Sometimes I sound like the old man I am. I'm glad you're joining us as a captain, Ichigo. And as a friend. Please come by any time you like, and not just to see Rukia. Thanks. Ichigo nodded. I will. Yukitake smiled. And I'll tell Rukia you were here. There wasn't much else to do but return to his own office. That was fast, Hinamori said as he entered. I'm just efficient. Good to know, Hisagi replied from beside his vice-captain. For the first time while in the office with them, he wasn't wearing his white captain's haori. He bowed to Ichigo in an exaggerated manner, his grin lessening the seriousness of the gesture. I just dropped off the last paperwork from my end. It's all yours now. I'll do my best, Ichigo said solemnly. They shook hands. I'm taking off, Hisagi announced. You might have a party tomorrow, but Ikaku and Renji are taking me out for mine early. Want to come? Thanks, but I think I'll stay here, he said. Try to get a handle on things so I'm not behind my first real day. You'll be fine. Go easy on him, Hinamori. He winked. Not too easy, though. Well, Captain, she said when Hisagi was gone, what comes first? He opened his mouth to say he wasn't a captain yet, then closed it slowly. It wasn't as if the ceremony meant as much as the actual work. Whatever needs to come first. The squads have their assignments for today, so let me guess more paperwork. You've already got the hang of it. She tilted her head and smiled. I guess so. He grinned and snagged her arm, guiding her towards the door. I haven't had lunch yet, and it's getting late for that, he said. Plus I'm not official until tomorrow, so no need to act official until then. Sir. Come on, Vice Captain, he said. We're going to get lunch, and I'm going to buy you a drink. The paperwork will still be here when we get back. Yes, sir. As an officer of the Gotei 13, Rukia was expected to attend the ceremonial induction of a new captain and listen to the speeches and symbolic acts with all the solemnity required by the occasion. She was capable of this. It was just that she had to try so hard to keep from giggling throughout the entire thing. She'd been fine until Yamamoto was halfway through his first address, when she'd glanced at Ichigo. He'd grown better at hiding his emotions over the years, and she'd gotten out of practice at reading them. But it was obvious in a heartbeat that he was already bored out of his mind. A veteran of such ceremonies, Rukia bit back a grin. Ichigo was in for a long wait. He might not be one for pomp and circumstances, but Soul Society absolutely was, and that hadn't changed no matter how many other things had since Aizen's war. After a while, when Captain Kairaku began his boisterous welcome speech as one of the senior captains and the atmosphere had relaxed a bit, she saw Ichigo looking through the crowd and caught his eye. She flashed him a small grin before resuming her serious expression, and a ghost of an answering smile appeared on Ichigo's face. They kept eye contact for the rest of Kairaku's speech, and Rukia could practically feel him trying to communicate with her. It had been a good idea to take some time to think about what they were doing. She understood why they hadn't had a chance to see each other for more than a minute, but she still wished she could drag him out of the gathering hall right then for a more private celebration. Soon, she reminded herself. It was his day. He should get the chance to enjoy it. They'd have plenty of time to figure things out together afterwards. She couldn't hold back a proud smile when Commander General Yamamoto unfolded the white haori and placed it over Ichigo's shoulders. He seemed to grasp the importance of this particular moment. Ichigo bowed his head as he slid the mark of rank and achievement on, and there was pride in his face when he lifted it again and looked directly at her. The roar of the approving crowd broke her reverie as the applause rose. With the ceremony over, the assembled group rose to its feet, with the representatives from 11th Division charging to be the first to congratulate the new captain. Rukia let them, and hung back. It was time for a party. Their time would come. It didn't look like it would come for a while, though. As the crowd moved to the 5th Division grounds where plenty of food and drink was already laid out, the party really got started. Rukia sipped a drink and watched from the edge of the crowd. For once, Ichigo was the life of the party. The only reason she could tell where he was in the mass of people was the orange hair that stood out like a beacon and the force of his ryatsu that she could feel shimmering around him. He looks good, doesn't he? A proud voice came from her right and she looked over to see Kurosaki Isshin clutching a beer. Kurosaki-san. I didn't realize you would be here. It's Isshin, Rukia-chan, Isshin. I keep telling you. He chuckled. I couldn't miss this. Besides, now that they've gotten my stupid son to be a captain, there's no worry they'll come begging for me to take back my old job. You should come back more often, she said. Captain Yukitake always enjoys your visits. Just him? Isshin raised an eyebrow. I still owe you a game of shogi, don't I? After the way you demolished me last time. He pouted. I still think you had an unfair advantage. I'll never go drinking with Shunsui the night before we play again. Just let me know when, she said. He's going to a DMN good job once he gets the hang of it, Isshin remarked. From where they stood, they could see Ichigo laughing at some joke of Captain Kairaku's. During all the time she'd spent with Isshin since his return to Soul Society, Ichigo had only come up in conversation once. In an uncharacteristically awkward moment for him, he'd commented on how stupid Ichigo was for letting a catch like her get away, but assured her that he still had a brain and was glad to see her again. She'd known that he was trying to avoid dancing around a touchy subject by trampling over it, and had appreciated it for the effort it was. The awkwardness was gone this time. He will, she said, almost to herself. When she looked back at Isshin, he was watching her, a faint but knowing smile growing on his face. He's lucky to have you to look out for him, he said. My son has a good heart but no sense sometimes. If only he'd taken after his mother more. She held back her laughter. He'll be fine. I think so, he said. There's one thing I have to ask you, Rukia-chan, he said, face growing serious. It's very important. Yes. She tensed. Wait at least a year before giving me grandchildren, he said firmly. He certainly owes me them, but let him settle into the job first. Her jaw dropped. Kurosaki-san. Well, I better go extend my congratulations to the new captain. He trotted away. Been a while since I've given him a good kicking. Rukia decided she needed another drink. She found Rinji on her way for more sake. Hey. She elbowed him. Having fun? It's not bad. He winked at her. Our division would do it better, but it's a passable party. It'll get a chance to prove it when you retire, Captain Funny Eyebrows, she said. Why don't you have a drink? You should enjoy yourself. I will. Later, he said. I'm trying to pace myself. Ranjiku's taking the opportunity to indulge, and at least one of us should be able to walk upright at the end of the night. You could drink with her, you know. He shrugged noncommittally. She rolled her eyes. You're being stupid. No, I'm being private. It isn't as if anyone would care. We'll see, he said. I don't see you out there drinking with your boyfriend. She stared. How did you? Renji looked embarrassed. You look happy, he replied. I figured you would be once you stopped being a moron. She stepped on his foot, but didn't put her full weight into it. I'm sure you know a lot about being a moron. Never denied that. He ruffled her hair affectionately, then pulled away before she could stomp hard. Maybe I'll find Ran after all. You could congratulate the guest of honor, she said. I might, he said. But I think we've also said what we need to say. He waved. Later, Rukia. The crowd around Ichigo hadn't receded at all by the time she'd found and finished a second drink. Rukia didn't mind, but she didn't feel like winding her way through it either. It wasn't that she didn't want to talk to him, be near him, and it wasn't that she was particularly patient, she didn't want to wait. But she could, because soon, she wouldn't have to wait any longer. The party was nice. The food was superb. The drink was plentiful. Ichigo appreciated all of this and made a mental note to ask Hinamori who he should write a thank you note to later. Even though he wasn't wild about being the center of attention, he had to admit he was enjoying everyone's well wishes. He just wished he could track down the one person he wanted to hear from the most. He'd spotted Rukia once or twice, but not close enough to get her attention. For whatever reason, she'd decided to keep her distance. He supposed he could understand why if he had her by his side, he wouldn't want to pay attention to anyone else that was there, and that'd just be rude. It didn't make her absence any less annoying, though. It was after midnight by the time he managed to escape from the crowd without getting pulled aside for another handshake and hearty congratulations. Things had mellowed out enough that it was more like a regular party than a formal occasion to honor the new captain. He was sure the constantly replenished alcohol had something to do with that. Now he just had to find Rukia. He began circling the edge of the courtyard, scanning the crowd for a glimpse of her, but he saw nothing. She just had to be tiny, didn't she? He could try feeling for her Ryatsu, but with this many strong spiritual presences around, it'd be like digging through sand to find more sand. Ichigo. He stopped in his tracks, close to one of the smaller buildings that bordered the yard. Rukia, he replied uncertainly. Ichigo, he heard again. Over here. Turn around. Look up, you idiot. He turned, looked and squinted into the darkness. What are you doing on the roof? What are you doing on the ground, she retorted. Good question. In a quick flash step, he was on the roof. He plopped down beside her. She handed him a hunk of taiyaki and they chewed in silence. So, Captain, she said after a few minutes. Congratulations. Thank you, he said, then, when she didn't follow up, that's all. Should I say something else? He shrugged. Been hearing that all evening. Thought you might at least come up with something more original. I suppose I should've. Had time to think of something more since I waited so long for the captain to free up. He frowned, but she was smiling when he glanced at her, so he relaxed. Don't worry, Rukia. If you try really hard, I'm sure you'll be as popular someday, he said. He hesitated for a moment. Where's Renji? I'm sure he would have kept you company. He left with Matsumoto a while ago, she said. Ichigo blinked. Matsumoto? I didn't realize they were friends. Well, they should be. Rukia chuckled. They're sleeping together. He whipped around to stare at her so fast he could practically feel himself get whiplash. Renji and Matsumoto? You're kidding me. Because I'm such a joker. She made a face. Ha. He leaned back on his hands. He said something that made me think he was seeing someone, but I didn't figure it was her. Neither did anyone else, she said. He didn't even tell me until I went to have breakfast with him one morning and caught them in bed. Why is it such a secret? He's an idiot, she said. He keeps insisting it's just friends with benefits, as he puts it, but I'm not so sure. It's not a subject we've discussed in depth, though. I guess not. Did you see your father? She asked. Oh, Pops. Yeah, we talked for a while. I think he and Kairaku are up to something now. I didn't really want to know. She grimaced. As old as those two are, I don't think they've ever truly grown up. You're telling me. He snorted. I'm the one he raised, don't forget. I don't think I could. They were quiet for a few minutes. Though the actual distance wasn't great, the noises of the party seemed muffled and almost far away. Ichigo. Rukia, they started almost at the same moment, then stopped. She smirked and he ducked his head, feeling stupid. Go ahead. I'm not really sure what I was going to say. He edged closer. Sorry we haven't gotten a chance to talk in a few days. It's been crazy getting ready for this. Don't be sorry. She waved a hand dismissively. I understand. It's probably about time we did, though. I suppose so, she said quietly. He watched her, trying to figure out how to say what had been on his mind. It would be nice if he could just take her in his arms, kiss her, and let that say it all, but things had never been that simple with them. I've been thinking a lot this week, he said, staring at his hands. About us. Where we were, where we are, where the hell we go from here. She just nodded. He couldn't quite read her. Her expression seemed welcoming enough, but slightly guarded, like she was waiting for him to reveal his hand before she showed hers. I'm not one for speeches, Rukia, he said. So I don't know how well this is gonna come out. He took a breath. You and me, we're not meant to be. Rukia made a soft noise in the back of her throat and immediately he saw where he'd gone wrong. Hold on. He grabbed her hand. When I say we're not meant to be, I mean we're not fated, Rukia. It wasn't inevitable that I'd die and we'd get back together. It was our choice. He took a breath. It still is. I want to be with you. Yeah, we f'd things up a lot before. Doesn't mean we have to now. I want to try, he said. So, your turn. After a moment, she took his face in her hands and kissed him hard. He pulled her closer, and for several minutes there was nothing beyond the warmth of her in his arms. Until she pulled back and pinched his side. Ow, he protested. What the hell was that for? You're right, Ichigo, she said. You are terrible with words. She leaned in so their foreheads touched. But I think I can live with that. Good. He snuck in another quick kiss. So, wanna start living with it tomorrow night, then? Say, around 8? Kurosaki Ichigo, are you asking me on a date? Maybe, he said. She laughed. Hey, it seemed as good an idea as any. We never really did that, you know. I know, she said. I accept. Well, good. He stood, Captain's Haori blowing in the light breeze. The wind had kicked up a bit. I've got my own captain.